Check. Yep, he's in there. Bada boom, bada bing. Let's do this. Hello, YouTube.
Good evening, everyone.
Is it actually live?
We're actually there.
It is live.
We are
Live and direct.
We're live. Well done. Well, give me a few seconds silence then. Good evening and welcome to episode 51 of the Hop Edition podcast. You're back with your four horsemen of the apocalypse, and tonight we are going to be doing yet another Q&A episode covering your key questions, which we've been gathering from the respectful Homebrew community via mostly Facebook. So thanks to everyone that submitted a question. We've also reached out to our Patreons, who obviously have supplied us with lots of really interesting and decent questions to answer this evening. So big thanks to our sponsor, Brewing Tap. If there is anything that you're after in terms of dispense, kegs, taps, all of that good stuff, serving up your beer, then check them out. I'm not entirely sure what their website is, brewkegtap.com or .co.uk. Try either, smash it into Google. And I also want to say a big thank you to all of our supporting Patreons, and particularly to our newest Patreon, Aussie Rob, I assume, over in Australia. So thanks, Rob, for joining Patreons. If you are interested in becoming a Patreon, supporting the podcast, go check us out over at patreon.com/The Hop Edition. So guys, how are we doing this evening?
All right, tired, but yeah,
Good. Positive vibes all round.
Chris is ready.
Everyone's full of energy.
I think Chris is ready.
I've just had Timmy Trumpet playing Freaks, so I am golden. All of the bad karma got ejected out of the shed, and I didn't even have to have a wank to do it.
Thank goodness for that, because you were on you were on camera to us. But I don't
Big
think
relief.
we'd really enjoy that show.
No, probably not, to be fair.
Keep that to OnlyFans.
That's the one kept over on OnlyFans.
Yeah.
You beat me to it, Andy.
It's 20 minutes of trying to find it and then 2 minutes of flicking it. Right.
Oh.
Very good. Right, what are we all drinking then? Chris,
Well,
what are we drinking?
This is a rather fancy glass. I know it's a fancy glass, but this is the literal last, what we call in that, probably 7th of a pint of my Kolsch that exists in the world. The 5-litre reserve keg has just kicked. So this is my Kolsch. Say bye-bye to it because it's just about to go.
And it didn't ever clear.
It never cleared.
Oh,
At all. But banger of a beer. Very nice.
Yeah, we've heard about that one before, I think, and we say go check out episode 40 something.
Yeah, something like that.
That's the
something
one.
like that. Tricky, what are you drinking, mate?
I am on my lime goes. So this keg has just been going on and on and on. It seems to, not that I'm not enjoying the beer, because it's really nice. But I guess you just don't tend to, get stuck into sour beers in the same way as you would like sessionable pale ale or something, even though this is quite sessionable strength. So yeah, I've drunk this before on the pod and talked about it. It's actually come out really nice, and I guess one of the good things about beers like this is they don't seem to deteriorate too much. In fact, they probably get a little bit more complex over time. So yeah, it's quite enjoyable. Nice zippy palate cleansing beer to start the pod off for me.
It's definitely you left a bottle of that at mine, and
Oh yeah,
I really enjoyed it. It was very zippy, but really well balanced. But I sympathise in terms of kind of specialty beers do tend to just hang around in the keg a bit longer than everything else, right?
I mean, it's definitely, before this, I probably would have questioned whether I would want to have a sour beer on tap, like a full keg of it. And I think this has made me realise that, that I don't mind that, but it does keep a tap locked up for quite a while because it takes a good bit of work to get through them. But yeah.
I'd agree. And I think it's probably summer months only, really, for me. About you guys.
Yeah. I can't see myself brewing something like this in the depths of winter, to be fair, because it's that would take even longer for me to get through it, for sure.
Agreed. Andy, what are you drinking?
Oh, sorry about that.
That was the weirdest burp I've ever heard. It sort of sounded like a seagull vomiting.
It was very much like a bird vomiting, wasn't it? It was sort of trying to feed his chicks or something there.
Yeah, I was like, rah! There you go, children. So I'm drinking a Air Brewing Co. Leslie Lundy, which is like a golden ale, and it says it's brewed with Styrian Goldens, so it's got that kind of nice. It's almost like a kind of crystal malts in it, and it's just got a kind of nice traditional light zippy feel about it. So 3.8%, nice easy drinker. So yeah.
Looks crystal clear.
Oh, it is crystal clear. Oh, you can even see. Yeah, knowing the process that goes on, it'll have been a 90-minute boil with hops thrown at 60, 15 and flame out, no doubt. And probably these days now brewed with USO5 instead of a traditional kind of, I think it was a Yorkshire ale yeast type thing he was using at one point. And he's now switched it to USO5 because after the many lockdowns, his yeast kept dying. So ended up getting sick of trying to regrow new yeast. So he's ended up switching to USO5 because it's just a lot easier, to be honest. And he's enjoying not having to acid wash his yeast as well. So between batches, that sort of thing, the way he did it. It's kind of like proper traditional real ale type brewery. There you go.
It's kind of an interesting point, that, isn't it? In terms of depending on scale, using liquid yeasts, I would imagine, like if it might be quite tricky just to sort of manage that. It's just an extra process.
Yeah,
and quite a high intensity process.
So even you could just buy them in.
Keep that going.
It's the cost. So it's obviously the cost. And what he was doing was actually going to either, was it Fine Ales? And he got like a bucket or whatever of the same yeast because they were using the same one for certain things. Or there was one down in Yorkshire as well. I went down to for the second time it went, and he got it off them. But the first, I think he was saying like the first sort of batch as you're building up, it's a bit slower. But then once you get in a couple of iterations, then it's back up to full strength sort of thing. I always wonder why why you wouldn't just during lockdown, why you wouldn't bank it and put it on a slant or something and then just grow it back up yourself. But it's maybe just mega hassle, or just doesn't know too much into it or whatever.
Well, you can imagine like the amount of effort you have to go from slant to enough for a 23-litre batch.
Yeah, and never mind
going
800 litre. 800 litres,
yeah. There a few steps involved in that one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Take you a flask. Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Right, well, I'm drinking my sort of persistently bitter recipe, which is which is yet to clear up. Still muddy as shit. But it tastes pretty good. It's had some time to condition and balance out, and it's tasting like pretty fruity and nice malty backbone. Nothing too prominent sticking out in terms of the malt. A little bit of a toffee kind of tone, kind of almost like slightly burnt caramel.
So what hops and yeast did you go for, Owen?
I used an experimental hop, which I can't remember off the top of my head. It was one of those kind of malt miller sale purchases.
Charles
you know,
Farm,
you know when they're just. Do you guys ever peruse the sale aisle on the malt miller?
Yeah, I've even got some like experimentals, and it's like light lemon or something and whatever. Yeah.
Well, this one just had a number, and it was like it was 5 or 6 digit number.
Yeah.
And I sort of read the description, and I thought, you know what, that actually sounds pretty good, because I didn't have any
First Gold
Bramling Cross.
Bramlin.
And I didn't really have a great deal of English hops lying around, so I was like, wow, you know, and I did a double batch as well, so I needed a decent amount.
You needed that, yeah.
And it was kind of, I think the descriptions were kind of like not totally dissimilar to Bramling Cross, to be fair. Kind of more leaning towards the berry notes, so that's kind of why I ended up using it. Probably not quite as twiggy, probably a little more floral. I know you guys probably drank it, didn't you?
Oh,
I did.
It was on the hand pull.
Pretty sure I had a go on that.
I must have had 6 pints of that, mate. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not offensive. I can't remember what yeast I used, Andy. What yeast did I use?
London Ale.
Yeah, I used the Lallemand.
Lallemand London, the dried one.
Yeah, the dried London ale yeast, which I think is might be Boddington's.
Okay.
I'm not sure. But yeah, it was nice, easy. Just pitched about 3 packs, I think, for a double batch. And yeah,
nice.
It's come out right. My only criticism is just the clarity, to be honest. Yeah.
Hey, can't fault it. I thought it was beautiful beer. Can we jump straight into the questions? Because we've had one in the chat and I want to use my new toy. Oh, Nicky, what have I done? Oh, it's okay. That's fine.
Yeah, go nuts.
Yeah, okay. So, first question threw straight in immediately by Mersey Beers. He says, good evening. Which brewery do you think has consistently the best can art? He's currently laughing at Mr. Blobby and Snagglepuss can art from Sure Shot Brew Co.
That's a good question.
Debate that one, gents, because this one could go on for days.
Yeah, I mean, it's the eye of the beholder, really, isn't it?
Can I throw my hat into the ring?
Yeah, go nuts.
I don't want to give it away. I've actually got a couple of cans of theirs in the fridge right now. I don't want to throw it away, but all I'm going to say is I am a huge retro gamer.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
And I'm a rather large fan of Ready Player One, the film, and the book Ready Player 2. So I'm going to say Elusive.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
That kind of pixelated Super Mario from the original Nintendo.
That's a good shout.
I get that.
It's good shit.
I think I would go for Owen's local, because Unity have stepped up their art big time, have they not?
Yeah, they have an artist that does it all for them.
I'm loving.
He's very talented.
Yeah, I'm loving the new, like, the theme and what they've kind of brought, and bringing in the whole by the sea sort of things. Pretty cool.
I like the color palette.
Yeah, it's like the kind of, what do you call that? It's not mottled, but
pastels.
Thing, yeah, it's class. It's very on trend, I would say, pastels.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. That we did a podcast not that long ago, and I remember saying about how the can art was pretty cool.
Are you thinking about duration? Because that's who I was going to say. With
no, it wasn't.
Oh, you're muted, Chris.
Track.
No, I know I was talking to myself.
Oh, sorry.
I was just. I think duration stuff's pretty damn good.
The
What
duration
was it?
stuff does literally look like they're, art on the can rather than, just a can design sort of thing. So that's
Yeah, it does. They've
like
done well with the marketing on theirs. What was that one that you had where it was the can art was actually the art of a woman, and we found her stuff all over the internet?
Oh no, that was the Nelson beer, was it not, from Verdant?
Yeah, that was the Verdant beer, wasn't it? It was the
That was one of
unconventional tactics
Was
movie.
it,
No, there
was
was
the Samurai? No.
Oh, man, no, I think it maybe was a different beer that Chris is recalling, but it was ages ago, and there's absolutely no way I'm recalling that.
You had a couple of dippers since then, Owen.
Yeah, there might have been a few tucked away. I had some beers from Meraki recently, which I was generally incredibly impressed with both the breadth and quality of their beers. And I really liked their styling in terms of the can art wasn't crazy, but it's very geometric, which I enjoy.
The geometric overtones, all about the geometric.
Yeah,
Like the whole theme, which is probably a lot of the colours on the side of this sort of thing. I like how some of the different breweries just go like one-off type, real pieces of art on the can. I think who was it? The Cloudwater will do that as well, didn't they? They'll get a lot of kind of art on can. Or who's the owner of Cloudwater? You know, the guy that does it. I think he took a lot of photos and would put a lot of his photography on the cans as well.
yeah. I mean, yeah, there is a lot of breweries that tend to collaborate.
You've got to stand
artists.
out.
I think Siren's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Siren do a lot of cool can
I like
art.
Burnt Mill as well. Their can art's pretty cool. It's a lot of it's quite sort of photographic type stuff that's incorporated into the can designs, kind of scenic sort of photography and stuff.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's kind of cool.
Can I just throw in a few suggestions from the chat?
No.
We've got.
What do they know?
I mean, especially a few of them definitely drink more beer than me. So we've got Brett Harmon, who thinks Holy Goat. He's also shouted out Elusive and Admonson.
Mm-hmm.
Admonson
all
do
decent
some cool
art.
stuff. Yeah, Admonson do some cool stuff.
Burning Sky from Hitman Hughes. And Hughesy completely disagrees with you in that he thinks the can art is brilliant, but he's not a fan of the pastel colours.
Yeah.
Now, Lulu reckons Flock beers are very good at can art. Some decent shouts there, but I think you're all wrong because quite clearly it is definitely Elusive.
Well,
okay then.
Yeah,
okay, cheers.
Chris has spoken.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for setting us straight. Much appreciated.
I have to say, I thought that samurai can art that you had not long back, Owen, was fucking phenomenal. I thought that was really, really good.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch the podcast. Try and figure out. Well, I'll have to figure out which podcast it was first.
It was about 4 pods ago, maybe 5 pods ago.
You reckon? I reckon it was more than that.
Yeah.
We've got another shout out from one of the people who entered the competition and did quite well. The man from Carlisle, Aaron Rennie, reckons Brew York's can art.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Also, the names of the beers.
Yeah, definitely with him on the beer naming for sure.
He shouted out the beer naming. Oh wait, I should have done this, shouldn't I?
I like that comment.
I highlight that comment. I'm sorry, I was too busy contemplating my own navel. Deck reckons Cool Brewing in Glenthrows have some decent can. I've not had any of their beers.
Never.
In fact, never heard of the brewery until you just mentioned it, Deck. I'll be honest. So yeah, a nice little palate cleanser to start us before we get into some of the more serious questions. So I don't know who did this question because there's actually no name associated with this, but apparently somebody wants to know how many people I've choked out after a brew day went wrong.
That's a very serious question to kick off with.
Well, I'm a professional. My brew days don't go wrong.
Aye, right.
And I'm saving all my choke outs for the next time I see Andy.
Very good. All right.
Right, come on then. Somebody pick a question and let's go with it.
Let's just go down the list from there, shall we? So Chris Ibbotson asks, for me, I'd like to know what is the biggest game changer each of you have discovered recently that has improved your brewing. There's a very similar question to this, which I think we might as well do kind of together, which is the one from Rob Schonfelder, which is, since interviewing pro brewers, what's the best tip or practice you've picked up and used or plan to use to change in your home brewing? So I think those two kind of fit together quite nicely. So yeah, what are we thinking? Anyone? Recently
it's probably the, I don't know, mash thickness has been quite good to try and get to try, because I've always struggled with my beers being a bit drier. I think it's been a bit of a problem. I think it's all coming down to mash temp, getting my strike right, and then also mash thickness as well. So just keeping an eye. So Brewfather spits out a number. Maybe just use that as a guide, but don't go for the Brewfather. You know, go look at the mash. How do I want the mash thickness? If I do want it to be, you know, to finish it a little bit, sort of a bit more sweeter, sort of thing. So yeah, and then I can then use my sparge to then get my target sort of boil levels. Yeah,
I think similar on that same sort of line. The pod with Track recently has made me think a bit more about exploring those higher mash temperature ranges that, you know, it's always a bit like scary thinking of doing
72, like wow.
Degrees, but obviously it is fine to do that as long as you don't go too far above that level. But yeah, so I think maybe, and we'll talk about this, I think, with one of the other questions about session beers, like not being afraid to really push that mash temperature up to get the increased body, and having a, you know, keeping your ABV down while still having a fairly high original gravity is something that I think is a really interesting thing to try out. I haven't really done much of it yet, obviously, but that's something that I'm going to be definitely trying out a bit more in my beers, and especially with the revised version and the Sonoma clone that's going to be coming up very soon, I think, as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout, Chicky. For me, probably a couple of things. I think one's just a real focus on consistency in my process. So just, I guess that just comes really from like repeatability of brewing using the same kit, but just tending to find that I hitting numbers, getting that right, pretty smooth brew days, doesn't rarely ever goes wrong these days. So I think that's a big game changer for your beer, for my brewing overall.
Yeah,
just in terms of the overall consistency of my beer. You know,
sorry, are you hitting your brew house efficiency then, on pretty consistent?
Yeah,
now, you know, where it's
pretty consistently hitting OG, like you know, within a point or two generally. Occasionally I get a weird overshoot, but I'm putting that down to kind of milling the grain a little bit too fine. And then I think the other thing was, what was I going to say? I think just research and just actually taking my time to properly plan a brew day. In terms of, I think I'm sort of out of that period where sometimes I'm just desperate to brew because I really enjoy the process, and it's almost like I get, you know, I've not properly thought through all the preparation and the research, and you know, sometimes you kind of brew a beer and then you taste that beer and you go, it's not really that great, but I was trying something different, and actually I didn't really properly research it and think about it and plan it out, and and also yeast preparation and stuff like that, making sure that you've got the right yeast, you've got the right amount of yeast, you've got all the ingredients you need. It's just all doing all of those things and not compromising, right? Or also making last minute changes to a recipe.
Oh, we all do that though.
Well, I'm probably still a little bit guilty of doing that, but
Everybody does that.
I think again, that's through experience. I'm just kind of, and also just, I think I'm tending to rebrew more of the same recipes.
Okay.
So there's more refinement going on, as opposed to having just done lots of one-off.
It's like, oh, I'm going to brew a stout because I've never brewed a stout before or something. So the early day stuff, I've
probably got I'm not saying I've brewed all the styles, but I've probably brewed enough, a breadth enough of styles to now have gotten a handful of recipes that I really want to dial down and get those really solid,
I have a question, Owen.
I think that's the key bit. I
have a question for you. Talking about refinement and improvement and rebrewing, when can we expect Blueberry Waffle Stout version 2?
It might come back. But
is that likely to be the day after Hell gets the Winter Olympics? Right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's good.
Yeah. I don't think you will see a version 2 of that, but
by the sounds of it, mate, I kind of hope we don't. I'm fairly sure that would destroy your brew tools.
For everyone's benefit, maybe not.
So for me, it's pretty straightforward. I need to do more research. I need to go deeper in to the hops that I'm putting into the brew, and based on the chart that Yakima Chief that we got from Robbie. Talking about the humalones, the co-humalones, the amount of this, the amount of that, which hops work with others, the particular compounds that are within the beer, within the hop, and the way that they're going to interact. Because just recently, I've had some absolute stinkers where I've gone, do you know what? That hop sounds good. I'm going to throw that in, and I really fucking shouldn't have done because it's ruined a brew.
There's nothing worse.
So for me, it's more into looking into just balancing the hops more than anything else. Because I'm not afraid of big hops. I'm not afraid of the American hops or the Aussie hops or the New Zealand hops or some of the bigger ones that are coming out from continental Europe, specifically from places like, Slovenia and places like that. Where is it Slovenia? Styria. Styria, Slovenia.
Yeah.
All of that sort of stuff, trying to get like the newer hops and trying to get them to work. And also, I've talked about it and I've done it a few times, but I don't do it as part of my standard practice. And that's to remember to layer the flavors within my beers and to utilize those nobles for that strong backbone. Recently, I've just been chucking pretty much wherever I felt like into a beer because I've got my malt bills down pretty good. I know how to make a decent malt base for a beer, but I've just been very blasé and lackadaisical with the hops and just throwing them in, and I've really fucked up a beer that I thought was going to be amazing. And it I'll be honest, it's cost me quite a lot of money hops wise. And money short times are hard as your fucking Christmas card, but I've got to be careful with it all. I've only got about 16 kilos of hops left.
I know, I was just thinking that.
Yeah, go easy.
No shit.
I was thinking recently on this subject that, I think all of us probably have a lot of hops sat around in the freezer.
Yeah.
Do you think, obviously they do lose something during the process whilst they're being sat in the freezer and whatever, versus like buying super fresh hops. Do you think how much of a difference do you think that makes?
Cost. It's like
it's
that's the primary reason.
What I'm weighing up, right? What I'm weighing up here,
is
it better to buy as you go,
Yeah.
Right, and try and buy the right amount for the beer that you want to make, or buy in bulk,
Well,
store in the freezer.
Well, the bulk comes down to cost, doesn't it? And we all want to. I know. I think we're paying maybe £3 per 100 grams if you buy in bulk, or thereabouts, sort of thing. Depending, for a good American type hop, or yeah, it's probably about that mark. Whereas if you buy as you go, you're paying £6 to £10 per 100 grams, and you're probably paying postage as well. So then
Way
you're
more than that
also
if you're buying cryo.
yeah, true. Yep, £10 for maybe 25. No, is it £7? £7 for
That's
25
£7-8
grams.
for 24 grams.
Yeah, I had a look.
Ouch.
I don't know if Robbie's going to listen to this podcast. I really hope he does. But please, Robbie, get your thumb out and get that web shop up and running, will you?
And the prices need to be a little bit
Better.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I'm tight. I'm from Yorkshire. He's Scottish. He's never seen the bottom of his pocket.
Yeah. But but then it's cryo, isn't it? So we'll all try it and see how the results come. Because
I mean, I've
at
got
the
beer
same
on the go
time-
with them in at the minute, and out of the packet, they do legit smell
Insane.
absolutely unbelievably good.
Yeah.
But will it prove to be that good in the actual beer that it's worth that sort of money? It remains to be seen.
Well, we seem to be buying a lot of commercial with this stuff in it, and it seems to be that's how they're hitting that next level.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a good one. I think I'm going to be honest. I think my answer to that particular question rolls really, really well into a question from Luke Stevens, which is all about aromazine.
Yep.
What is it and how is it best to use it?
Well, I think, Chris, you're probably best answering that first question.
Yeah. Is it an enzyme?
Well, it's aromazine, isn't it? Not aromazyme.
Yeah,
is it
aromazine? Well, aromazine is
used in the wine industry.
It's a trademark name, isn't it? Right.
But it's basically just a protease, as far as I can work out. So it's just an enzyme, and all it does is it breaks down proteins within the beer. And I would assume, not having read too deep into it, I've been busy this week, I would imagine that it simply breaks the protein binding and allows those flavor compounds to come free and clear. It just kind of amps up the amount of flavor and aroma compounds that are available within the beer. I can't see as it does much more than that.
Well,
Murphy's used to have a product called Hop Flour, which did the same thing. So it's probably...
I thought it was to do with thiols. I'm sure it's not to do with the thiols.
I'll tell you what, I'll mute myself and I'll go do some quick research. You guys talk.
Go
I'll
check
be back
it
in
out,
a few
Chris.
minutes.
That'd be good.
Well, my understanding was, I think it's all about the release of various
different flavors.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit about the cleaving off certain oils and compounds in the hops, but also additionally to the malt. But the main purpose of it is to accentuate and better enable that the what's the term, biotransformation.
Mm-hmm. That's why
biotransformation, which is in terms of, for anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's a chemical reaction that happens during active fermentation, where a lot of those desirable hop compounds kind of almost fuse with the yeast, right, to create something more permanent, that tend to more survivable, I think, right? So carry through into the beer a lot longer and more consistently, because they are extremely volatile.
Remember Jimmy was saying he uses Idaho 7 because it's got that sort of hack with the yeast, so it specifically brings those sort of thiol releasing, or it works, and that's why he introduces Idaho 7 with the Citra.
Yeah, I know Jimmy's done a lot of reading on this survival compounds piece, which I think Yakima Chief and Robbie. If you haven't listened to that podcast with Yakima Chief with Robbie,
Yep.
then they produced a document around survivable compounds, and certain hops do have more survivable compounds than others, and that tends to be really beneficial in hop forward beers. That carries through, and I think it's the similar concept. And I think the survivable compound piece would work in conjunction with this idea around aromazine, that aromazine would help, to ultimately biotransform a lot of those survivable compounds and make them potentially even more survivable, or accentuate them more. And Matt from Track was talking about this. They were using that technique around mash hopping, which can create more thiols.
Yeah.
Which I'm guessing is some sort of chemical reaction happening within the mash process, because obviously a lot of enzymatic activity going on in there. And then they're using a yeast that can help unlock those thiols during active fermentation, which is that Cosmos Punch / WHC yeast that they were using. So I think I was talking to Luke. I've used aromazine, but I used it incorrectly, and I used it post fermentation. Now, part of the problem is the fact that this enzyme releases sulfites. I ended up with sulfates. Anyway, Chris is shaking his head at me because I used the wrong scientific word.
I'm starting to twitch.
Essentially, I ended up with a sulfur problem. Now, the problem I think I had was because I added it post fermentation, there was no active fermentation going on that would actually blow that sulfur out of the beer via the airlock, right? Which typically might happen similarly to sort of what will happen with a lager yeast. So what my advice to Luke was when he wanted to use it was either to add it during active fermentation with a dry hop, if you're going to add it in that kind of last few stages of last few points of fermentation, which is always kind of tricky to judge. Or what I noticed is that Mangrove Jacks do a yeast which has aromazine in it.
What one's that? Do you know?
I'd have to look it up.
If you go
Hophead.
If you go to just a second, you go to lalmondbrewing.com/en/United States/aromazine. It talks about a specific trial recipe that they did with Bry 97.
Yep.
It was a brute IPA beer, 6%.
Who makes those anymore?
Centennial.
What?
Well, cut them some slack because this was probably done 5 years ago, and it was dry hopped at 12 grams per liter, and there was an increased amount of linalool of 300% compared to a control beer by using the aromazine, which is a beta-glucosidase. Can I do the science real quick?
Go for it. Yeah.
So essentially, aromazine is a beta-glucosidase. It's an enzyme that catalyzes glycosidic bonds to produce beta-D-glucosides with oligosaccharides, and it releases glucose. So essentially, dries that kind of beer out a little bit, giving you more sugar for stuff to ferment. It also has this amazing function in that it breaks down cellulose. So if you've got hop matter in your beer, if you've dry hopped and you put aromazine in there, what it does is it breaks down the cellulose within the hops that are there to allow more of these compounds to be released.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So ultimately what it's doing is it's not supercharging the hop flavor and hop aroma.
Dissolvable.
It's
thiols.
simply allowing you to get more out of what you put in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Think of it like a cock ring, right? Get more out for what you put in. And And essentially, what this does is it blows off thiols and sulfur compounds, which is why you add it during fermentation, and basically the fermentation then blows those sulfur compounds off and out through the top, and they disappear. If you add it too late, then what happens is you end up with a smelly, eggy, sulfury beer, which is no bueno. So it's not new technology, but it is new to the homebrew market, and it's something which, when I do my West Coast IPA, which may well be tomorrow, and before I dry hop with the 2 packs of Cryo Simcoe and the 1 pack of Cryo Mosaic that I have,
nice.
I think I may well, because I've got a bottle of it in here, I may well squirt some in during the active part of fermentation and then drop the dry hop in and allow it to do its thing. It's essentially just supercharging what you've already got more than anything else and allowing more of those flavor and aroma compounds to be released and to essentially be smelt and tasted.
Good. Earlier, all I heard was cock ring, blow off, eggy farts.
There we go.
So
Something that Brett Harmon knows a lot about.
it's kind of almost like increasing your hop utilization, almost making your hops more efficient.
Yeah.
But that said, one
Is
of
it
my
free
gripes
files?
is with Lallemand, as well as the malt miller.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this, then please update your websites to reflect instructions about when you should use this product. Because there's nothing there to say use it when you pitch your yeast or use it during active fermentation. Or in my case, what would have been used for is do not add it after fermentation is finished.
Yeah.
No, I don't know for certain that it was the aromazine that caused my sulfur problem.
Yeah, because remember,
could have
Gonna
been,
be, innit?
Oh, well, no,
probably
because mine was producing a lot of sulfur as well on the conflux, and that was with London L3. So I don't know. But then I let mine blow off. I'm sure because it wasn't under pressure. Mine was on the. I did a smaller batch. No, I did.
You see, yeah,
I didn't. I did the unitank, but I don't think I didn't pressure it or anything.
No, I didn't pressure
it blow
mine
off.
either. But mine wasn't smelling eggy at all during fermentation.
Ah, right, okay.
And it was smelling great, in fact. And the only other thing I think it could have been was that I added Camden tablet.
Yep.
To help scavenge oxygen, and I may have added too much. And obviously, that is a sulfite. I'm looking at Chris. I think it's a sulfite, right?
Camden tabs.
Yeah. So if you do add, and I think actually the taste perception level is pretty low.
It is pretty low. Sulfites are very, very stinky compounds. Not as bad as thiols, right? Or macaptos, but they're pretty damn close.
So I may have just kind of overdosed it with Camden tablet before I think I added that during the dry hop. So that's the other thing that it could have been.
Oh, and it's worthwhile letting the listeners know how you fixed it.
I'm not sure I'd necessarily fixed it, but I think if you do have a sulfur issue with the beer, I took some advice from one of my homebrew friends from the Homebrew Club, and he suggested take the keg out, leave it to warm up, and then
CO2 purge,
and then blow it off.
Yeah.
Give it a blowjob, basically.
Get it off.
Cock rings, blowjobs, we're all over the sexual innuendo tonight.
That's it. That's perfect. And because it's warm, a lot of those, like the sulfur compounds, I think probably escape into the headspace rather than being trapped within the beer, and then you can more easily release them out of the beer. I think also if you bubble CO2 down the dip tube and through the beer whilst the pressure relief valve is open, that can help too.
Mhm.
But there is only so much you can do to kind of correct it. So
Yeah.
Eventually, it comes off anyway.
eventually, but when you got a hoppy beer that you don't really want to have sat around for too long, it's not like a lager. You know, you can afford to just leave a lager, can't you? But
So we have a couple of questions. Sorry to just jump straight forward onto the next one. We have a couple of questions that, based on the news that we've had this week with the, what is it, 150% increase in the cost of gas and electric. Deck has asked, with electricity cost increasing, have you considered the short and shoddy 30-minute mash and boil? Well, me and Tricky both have. Have you guys tried it or know anyone who has, and advice on the pros and cons?
DMS.
Don't do it so much if you're doing a Pilsner, because that ain't going to work too well. But if you're using like a pale malt, it doesn't really matter. And if your boil is vigorous enough, because everybody bangs on about an hour boil, a 90-minute boil, and I've seen some of the boils that people post pictures of, right?
That's poor.
And it ain't a fucking boil, it's a simmer.
Yeah.
Right? If it ain't bouncing, it ain't boiling. All right? So the bottom line is, make sure your boil's vigorous enough, and you can do 30-minute mash and boil with a Pilsner. If you've got, like I've got, a 4.5 kilowatt element to go into a 23-litre batch, you can do it. It's about the vigor of that boil and how many of those compounds you are driving off. You know, produce that steam at the bottom. Those bubbles come through. They take stuff and it disappears out the top. Simple as that. At the same time, we have another question from Harmon Brewing, which ties in really well with that one, which is, with the current future energy crisis, what would be the top tips on saving water and energy through the brewing life cycle? Do a 30-minute short and shoddy mash and boil, because that will save you 50% of your gas, 50% of your electric. You can do it right. Tricky's got a video on it. He's got a video on everything. How to shave a beard.
It's actually on a 15-minute mash and boil for a beer, which so you can push it even more extreme than that.
But be prepared to run around like a mad fucker.
Yeah, as far as pros and cons go, for 15 minutes, it's just like fucking lunacy because everything's happening so fast. Disadvantages, you've already mentioned, you know, potential issues with DMS and things like that. I think only other things to consider, your efficiency may drop a little bit, but you can factor that in.
But then that's more cost. Malt prices are going up, so it's like, I think,
I guess whether or not that would cancel out the money you're saving on electricity, you'd have to do some maths, which I can't be bothered to at the moment.
I don't think it. Is it not like a quid? It used to be £1 to do a brew day on the electricity, was it not? And then if you're using twice the amount of malt,
now it's 45 quid.
It costs more than all the ingredients now to switch the kettle on, but
now it's cheaper to buy dippers from Cloudwater.
I mean, you've got to think about things like adjusting the recipe, obviously, as well, not just in terms of efficiency, but if you can't put hops in at 60 minutes, if it's a recipe that relies on a 60-minute addition, you'll have to adjust your hopping schedule to reflect that. So again, you might have to actually put a little bit more hops in to achieve the same IBU level if you're doing it.
And you probably wouldn't get the same IBU like bittering and flavor as well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just not as summarizing for as long, and
exactly.
You know.
So you might get more carryover from the oils and stuff from what would have been a 60-minute addition normally. So it might change the nature of the beer itself to an extent. But really,
not always to the negative though.
No, not necessarily, but just something to be aware of, I guess. And I mean, the pros, it's fairly obvious. It just makes everything quicker. And as the questions referred to, potentially now might save you some money. But it's something it's really not, definitely give it a go if you fancy trying it out. It's not something that's going to automatically wreck your beer at all. Like Chris said, I think as long as you're using well-modified kind of modern malt, in most cases, it's pretty much risk-free.
So I think there's probably a bit we didn't touch on there, which was the water. So obviously, what with us being officially in a drought and all the hosepipe bans,
Hmm.
I mean, personally, I've just taken to not brewing because I've got enough beer. But for those that haven't, people have. I think there's certain people that are trying out this whole no chill thing, getting a big 20-litre cube,
Yeah.
filling it up and getting the air out and
Was it
leaving
Reiki was talking about that in the malt miller?
Yeah,
I
I
think they
think
did
the
a
malt
video.
miller were.
He's done it for ages.
Mm.
So instead of using all that water to chill it, yeah, you just chuck it in a cube like the Australians do that, don't they?
It's big in Australia. Yeah, I think perhaps maybe a reflection of the fact that their groundwater is so warm anyway for a lot of the year.
Yeah.
Maybe they just find that to be a more efficient way of doing it. But I guess there are other more elaborate ways in which you might be able to cool beer.
I got a counterflow chiller.
Yeah, or people like maybe you could set up like an ice box and kind of run a circulation system. Potentially, you're going to be
Pre-chiller.
producing. Yeah, so you could do that, but of course you're going to be using less water. But I don't know why I said it that less water. You're going to be using less water, and then but you are going to be having to freeze water into ice. So in turn, that's probably going to be
more energy.
Yeah, but then freezer's on, so I don't know.
It's working harder.
We're going down a rabbit hole now.
Yeah, we are. It's good, isn't
it? I'll keep digging.
Well, the easiest way to do it would be to set up your chiller to run through one of those cask chiller systems. So you run the big
the big bag. The beer festivals.
The under-counter chillers. The ones that you can buy for 400 quid. Just buy one of them, run your water from your tap through that to chill it down to 1 degree before you run it through your cooling system. It's not exactly a money saver, but it will save you some water.
It will save you time and less water, and therefore less water.
You could also do what I do, which is very simple. Just run your water from the outflow from your chiller straight into a water butt and use it to water your plants, because that's what I do.
Oh yeah.
And I do the same thing with the water.
Saving the water.
Yeah, and I do the same thing when it comes to the water from the RO system as well. It just goes straight into the water butt because the plants love the minerals. So why wouldn't I give the plants the minerals? They want the minerals. You should see the size of my fucking tomatoes.
Oh, that's because it's RO. You're doing the RO water, yeah.
Yeah, RO straight into the water butt, and when I'm chilling a beer, that water goes into the water butt as well.
All right, okay, cool. Mine's just goes straight down this.
But what I've started to do as well, and this one is quite a good one, this one, is instead of chilling using your wort chiller and trying, running it for 40 minutes to get those last 3 degrees, just bang it into your fermenter, stick it in your fermentation fridge, and set it to 2 degrees. The temperature drops very quickly. Nothing's going to grow in the hour and a half that it's in there because you've got a lid on it. Pop it open, chuck your yeast in. Robert's your father's brother.
Well, actually, I tend to, I've taken to say, I need to get a beer down to 20 degrees. And particularly in the summer months, I'm struggling to get it down to that temperature. If I get it to 25, I'll just stick it in the fermenter, pitch the yeast, put it in the firm fridge.
Yeah.
It gives the yeast a nice little kickstart. And by the time, the active fermentation is likely to increase, or the growth phase to start sooner, whilst eventually then the target temperature you reach probably in about 12 hours.
Yeah. Because
your firm fridge is working hard to kind of get it to the right temperature. So, I think that works really well.
Graham Hughes just says build a monster wort chiller.
I wonder who's just done that.
Yeah, I wonder who. Yeah, Graham.
And with this hosepipe ban, you can't technically use.
Well, you can, because hosepipe bans don't take into account the use of water for the production of food.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Also,
equally-
if he
equally,
follows
you're
Chris's
gonna have the
advice
guilt.
and fills up the water butt, he can water the plants afterwards with the watering can, and then he's
Yep.
Julius, nice one.
yeah.
That's what you want. I think Andy's internet's just died.
I think what you should probably do is
The Scotsman has frozen. Bye, Andy.
you should
he's
fill
back.
up a whole
No,
load
it's
of
not.
buckets and then drive it down to your local reservoir and refill it.
I mean, because with petrol costing £87
should.
a litre,
That's what you should do.
that's what we should all
That's
do.
a definite money saver.
Yeah. It's not going to fuck the planet up at all unless you've got an electric car. So yeah, Aaron Rennie was, because there's been a lot of conversation. I'm not highlighting all the messages, but people have been talking about no chill cubes. And Aaron Rennie says somebody left a wort in a cube for a year and saw no effect. It allows you to brew and store before fermenting, fitting it in better. It was someone on YouTube, he can't remember who. In fact, I should have done that, shouldn't I, really? Play with my toy.
Interesting.
And one thing that Luke Stevens has said, which is very important when you're using a no-chill cube, is the bitterness increase needs to be taken into account with the chill cubes. Because you're going to be at a higher temperature for longer. If you're throwing whirlpool hops in, you are going to get conversion.
Acid,
So you need to kind of take the whirlpool part out and put that into a dry hop, partially at least. So it does drop quite quick.
Yeah, and then it's also how much more are you going to get. So there will be a diminishing return on your alpha acids, won't it?
Yeah.
Over time. So
I think it's important also to state that the vast majority of us do actually have fermentation fridges. It's one of the things that everybody bangs on about being a really important part of your brew day. So if you've got a fermentation, but we're not all like,
I had to turn mine off. See,
I know, it's really loud.
Podcast. It's super loud, so I actually had to kick it off.
Yeah, I was going to shout at Owings. I thought it was the fans from his PC.
Who's
it's okay.
what?
It was Andy. It was Andy's problem, not you, mate. It's why I never said anything.
It was carrying over to the audio, so I was like, "Oh, get that off."
I mean, it's not like some daft bastard's just had his phone sat right next to his microphone or anything. Yeah, that'd be me. I've sat on it now, you know. But the what was I talking about? Because this was really important. I had a very valid point. Nope, it's gone. Can't have been that important. I need another. Aaron's been talking about.
I think we're talking about chill cubes. It was.
I was, yeah, and about having, it's fine, it's done.
Is there just on the subject of chill cubes? What's your thoughts about this whole kind of no chill, put it in a cube thing? It's not
for me.
Is there a risk that you're going to kind of get some oxidation happening? Or...
No, and don't forget, so you won't get any infection either because you're putting it in that hot heat. So it'll kill anything that was in the cube anyway. And then oxidation's not an issue because you'll pitch the yeast after, so then it will scavenge all that anyway. So
yeah, on paper it's all like sound and should be fine, but
no, that doesn't work at all. That doesn't work at all, Andy. Scientifically that's wrong, because the oxidation is going to occur just because you put a yeast in afterwards. That's not going to reduce.
Compounds are still oxidized.
They're still going to be oxidized. You can't reduce that oxidative effect. The oxidation is going to have occurred no matter what. So when you come to ferment it, you're just fermenting an oxidized beer.
I mean, I guess we're talking about how long it's being stored for and whether it's been like blasted into the cube and bubbled up loads and had loads of oxygen introduced it. There's got to be a lot of factors that will play into that. As far as how stable it's going to be, maybe.
But there is a greater risk of oxidation, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cat beers. What is actually oxidizing? You know, what compound for oxidizing?
It'd be your alpha acids, right?
Sugars. The malt actually itself, and your leftover.
So why does it not happen with cat beers?
It does. That's why they taste like shit.
And they're a lot darker.
That's why the Pilsner that my father-in-law makes is the same color as one of my Vienna lagers.
Then how? But if the okay, so if we are sticking it in, we've cooled it down. Does the process of cooling it down reduce the risk of oxidation? We're putting it into a bucket or a fermenter or whatever, and then we're pitching yeast into it. But that yeast may not become active for 12 hours. So it's got 12 hours just sat there in the same way as it might do in a cube. What's the difference?
That whilst that yeast is going through its proliferation phase, that's when it's utilizing the oxygen to make the cell walls.
Okay, yeah.
So that's where the oxygen is getting used. And the moment that yeast goes into that wort, as soon as it rehydrates, it's starting to bud. It's starting to go through its process of waking up, reproducing. All right. That's when it's utilizing that oxygen. The oxygen scavenging occurs really early on. So
yeah, that makes sense. That's why you want to add oxygen into lagers and big beers, right? Yeah. Of course.
So it's kind of, yes, I can understand that the no-chill cubes would work and they would be very, very good. But I think it's going to have to be one of those, when you're transferring into a no-chill, you don't splash it in. You get a small layer underneath. You transfer under the layer so you're not getting that oxygen ingress. If you could have like a small amount of CO2, if you could have a pre-purge thing or something like that, you'd probably do a better job of avoiding oxidation. It's the same process as what you do when you're transferring a beer into a keg if you want to avoid oxidation at that point.
See, that's no chill, right? You've got this cube now, right? And it's now cool. But it's like, 23 litres of what? So you do have to like unscrew it and then sit there and pour it into a fermenter.
Yeah.
With your back breaking and all that nonsense. Yeah, it's like that.
So I've just found that Brewlosophy did a experiment on no chill versus rapid chill on an American IPA.
Oh, nice.
I will save you all of the detail that I never read, and I jump to the end.
Yep.
Don't tell me there was no effect.
Yeah, hold on.
Zero difference.
We asked X number of
nine people
insignificant.
We were looking for a p-value
identified the
of less than
answer.
0.05, and lo and behold, we did not achieve it.
I think that says more about the taste buds of people than it does about the actual fucking process.
They say that, but a lot of these people are actually, they take it to homebrewers and all that who would normally have good taste buds. So I think when it comes down to it, you probably find the actual hop flavors in the beers and the malt, etc. Just probably any sort of slight difference that's maybe scientifically measurable just does not come across because the hop presence is just blasting through it.
I'm sorry, but if it's scientifically measurable, then it's fucking there. I don't give a shit what anyone's taste buds say.
Yeah, so you could say that, but when it comes down to a palate, it's not.
It's about as reliable of a process, short of sending it off to a lab and spending a lot of money getting it analysed. But what I actually find with these experiments is getting the person that did the experiment, their impressions are often as insightful as the experiment that they did with all their tasters. And
because they know what the difference is.
Yeah, and I think they were the one that went and did the experiment, so they've got skin in the game. And he basically said, I assume it's a he, it might be of her, said the beers smelled and tasted exactly the same, but they perceived a little more bitterness in the no chill version, which would suggest to me the hypothesis that no chill may create some alpha acid oxidation versus
or it just
chill.
Got more bittering because it was isomerizing for longer because it's not chilled down.
Yep,
that's also an equally reasonable hypothesis.
Did they make any allowance for that in the experiment? I guess is it.
Yeah, and I mean, you could test that hypothesis, right? If you did a side-by-side beer and then you just reduced the IBUs of the no-chill version, I kind of hope that you ballpark it. But yeah, so there you go.
Anyway,
we answered it.
Yeah, I'm not going to do no chill any point soon. Is my answer to that.
I'm not, because I can chill to 30 degrees, which is fine for me to put in my firm Zilla.
Yeah.
Bang that straight in the firm fridge, chill it down to 20 or whatever it needs to be.
Or
Bang
12,
a yeast in, job
whatever
done.
it is for a lager. Yeah.
I just don't particularly like the idea of just having it sat there and not finishing off the brew day sort of thing. Like I want it in the fermenter and fermenting as soon as possible. Like
As a scientist, I want to disagree with a comment that Aaron Rennie's just posted. He says, jump straight to the end of a scientific journal. From a professional point of view, that's all anyone does in a journal. Nope. If you read it beyond the abstract, you're doing something wrong, Aaron. There's no need to read beyond the abstract, mate. Trust me, I've written a few of them. Abstract says everything you need to know. Anyway, I thought that was really cool. Can we jump to a couple of questions from our resident hurdy-gurdy monster?
Who, Thomas?
It must be
the
Thomas.
Swedish chef, Thomas himself, the man with the Kamado, hurdy-gurdy, put the birdie in the gurdy, wants to talk about mash rests. Now, this was an interesting read. Okay, so Thomas has asked, mash rests like protein rests, etc., with modified malts seem to be a question. Do they reduce foam stability or do they not? Now, this one was interesting. Okay, I went down a rabbit hole. It was, oh my God. Is it racist? No. No. Because Thomas knows that I love him. He's a friend, and if you can't have bants with your mate, who can you have bants with?
It's true.
It's mild xenophobic bants.
I think it'd be racist not to.
To be fair, Thomas is a legend. I'm winding him up. So, protein rests depends which article you read. It depends which experiment you read, and only the abstract, as to whether or not people say, yes, there is a reduction in foam stability or not. Now, for me, the protein does interfere to a certain extent with the foam production and the foam stability. However, it depends what kind of beer you're talking about when it comes to the protein rest. Because if it's a Hefe or one of those wheat beer styles, which is predominantly the one where you do the protein rest and the ferulic acid, I mean, that's going. He managed to completely fuck a wheat beer up by doing like 15 different rests on it.
It wasn't 15, it was one.
Yes, but it was the big one. It was the big one, wasn't it? You went with the ferulic acid rest.
The ferulic acid. And what made it worse was the fact that I then fermented it at like 19 degrees.
Oh, mate.
No banana.
Skills.
Yeah, it tasted essentially like if you were to just chew on a inner tube.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sounds like a nice beer, mate.
There's a lot going on there.
The drain enjoyed all 19 litres of that. Yeah.
Clovey in a tube.
I don't think that we can say for sure until somebody brews a side-by-side, one with a protein rest. I think it's 52. You're supposed to do the protein rest at. That's where the protease enzyme. Might be wrong on the temperature. And then one which is just literally mashed at like 67. Exactly the same recipe, and just see whether or not it does have an effect. Because I can see both sides of this. Potentially it would or it wouldn't. I don't know which way to go on this. And to be fair, I don't do protein rests and things like that. I tend to just do a single infusion because I do brew in a bag essentially with a recirculation.
But you could.
I could.
You could,
but I'm not going to.
The problem with that process, I've been there and done that in terms of trying to do step mashes with that sort of setup. Is the real risk is that the more you try and kind of change temperatures of the thermal mass of the mash, the more you have to get the element firing harder, and if you get any gap beneath that bag, you're going to get burning problems. Right, so it's a bit
Potential to
iffy.
scorch the malt as well,
Scorch,
which is
a lot of scorching
not well.
challenges, and it's really, really difficult, obviously, in the fact that your brew pot's not see-through, to be able to judge as to whether your circulation's good and all the rest of it. So yeah, I'd say that's tricky.
And a lot of commercial don't have that facility either. They just do single effusion. It's like there's no, they strike it and then it's like leave it.
Yeah,
I think we need
the wording of that question is kind of like, why would you be doing the mash rest anyway? Because if you're saying with modified malts, most of the time you shouldn't really be needing to do.
No.
Well, I think if you rewind yourselves back to the duration podcast, I remember Bates talking about Chris's hazy Kolsch, and he was talking about, did he do a protein rest with that particular? He was talking about the protein levels in certain malts.
That was specifically for the floor malted Pilsner, wasn't it? I think, because he was saying that it would have higher something or other that would affect that.
Yeah. So and I mean, you're getting this is the thing with the hobby, right? Is you start to, like Chris was talking about, sort of hops and blending hops, and then you start getting into kind of the levels of protein within certain malts. You start getting really down the rabbit hole in terms of it becoming super niche, right? In terms of the amount of research that you can do. And fair play to anyone that goes, you know what, I'm using floor malted Bohemian Pilsner, so I'm going to have to do a protein rest at X temperature for 20 minutes, compared to if I use regular Pilsner malt. You're like, that's mental.
I mean, it does take on, it turns a 4-hour brew day into a 6-hour brew day. If you're doing all of these different changes of temperature and recirculation and mashing this and mashing that and changing this and changing that, it can take what can be a very enjoyable, chilled out, feet up in the shed brewing experience and process, and it can turn it into a fucking nightmare. Because you're worried all the time, am I getting scorching? Am I scorching my malts? Is this going to be really horrible by the time I get to the end? And it's adding a stage of worry that I'm not entirely sure is required.
It would add time. I agree with that. Probably. It depends on your system, right? Depends on your setup.
With that amount of thermal mass, if I'm trying to change the energy state of that level of thermal mass, then I've got a lot of energy to put in. And even with my 4.5 kilowatt element, I'm still going to have quite a lot of time to change it from 52 to 67. 15 degrees doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're trying to change 6 kilo, that's a big chunk to change.
I would agree. I think, but on Andy's system, he's got Herms. I think that's probably going to be slightly easier to do with a one pot bag system.
Yeah.
Well, it's not though, is it? It's going to be exactly the same.
It does take time. What I'm saying it takes time to raise the temp up, though.
There's fewer risks. You don't have the scorching issues that you have to concern yourself with.
Are we not just making moonshiner beer?
No, we're not giving that prick any fucking airtime at all.
Let's not go into that one.
Yeah, I'm not talking about you, Stewie. I'm talking about the prick that posts those fucking posts. He can fuck off, dickhead.
Copy and paste.
My
keyboard
Michael, someone.
James, is it?
Dick. He needs a kick in the bollocks with steel toe cap boots.
For anyone that's not following along there, is anyone that has posted any kind of brewing stuff to YouTube, is eventually you will get this kind of keyboard troll plop along, and he writes this enormously long diatribe about, and it's almost always the same thing about how like he talks about prohibition beer and stuff. I don't know what he's banging on
Yeah,
about.
mash
So
temps
basically
and
tries
how
to
you
tell
make
you.
moonshine.
Yeah, he tries to
if you
tell
don't,
you
you don't
that
do a rest
you
for a
don't know
moonshine
shit and
brewer
you're
or
not
something.
doing it
Distiller.
right. And
It talks about distilling malt and stuff like that
oh,
nonsense.
I don't know. I didn't understand.
What about Cindy Bin?
Oh,
She's
Cindy
long
Bin.
gone.
Yeah, well,
she's
she
not-
was
she's not doing much
hilarious.
more.
I can't believe you're posting videos about alcohol. Fucking
She
blah,
was
blah,
an
blah.
absolute
Fuck off.
lunatic.
She was a mentalist.
old
Cindy juice.
fucking Graham.
Graham
Pressley.
Atlas, like
He named the beer after her.
He
He's still punting out the
Cindy
Cindy
juice.
juice.
Yeah.
Cindy juice. Amazing.
Absolute legend.
That's
I
a
need a
proper
beer back
troller.
in a sec.
No, it's brilliant. No, it was excellent.
So just
Anyway,
a follow-up one from Thomas, which was in the same sort of topic, was about mash temps, and basically what effect it will have if you sort of miss your mash temperature too low or too high for a couple of minutes, and then if Rims and Herms level this out. I mean,
it's quite important, I think, actually, to get your strike right.
I think it can change the fermentability of your wort a lot quicker than most people think.
Yeah.
If you do miss it, I think if it's literally for like a minute or two, then.
But how quick can you change that?
Exactly, that's the thing. Like,
it's too hot and you put about a jug of water,
yeah.
then yeah. But
if you get anywhere close to sort of like 10 minutes in, and you're
it's 15 minutes in it, and it's mostly
most of the conversion has happened. So you may end up with your mash temp sort of fixing the fermentability too high or too low. I think if you're too high, it's probably more difficult to alter it. If you're too low, then obviously
I'd say the other way. Because you can just pour cold water.
It's absolutely the other way around.
Cold water straight in, and it just drops it.
Which way, Chris? My way or Andy's way?
So just a sec. Think about this logically, okay? There's
longer chain sugars.
The enzyme which snips the longer chain into shorter chains is more active at a higher temperature. So if you miss low, that's where it's going to change all of the longer chain stuff which would be left over into shorter chain stuff which is more fermentable. Because that enzyme which is active at like 72, which is going to give you your longer chains to give you a higher gravity beer, which is what we were talking about earlier on, that's where that enzyme is more active. Whereas the one which does the conversion from, say, 3 sugars to 1 sugar or 2 sugars to 1 sugar, that one's more active at 62. That's why we aim for 66, because it's a midway point between the two. So if you miss low, you're more... Oh, for fuck's sake, bell end. Sorry, keep pressing the wrong button on the keyboard. If you miss low, it's more of an issue than if you miss high.
Well, cool. someone's got Tourette's tonight, isn't it? And it's not tricky. Amazing. Is that
that's that one covered.
I thought your Kolsch was all gone. What are you drinking, Chris?
That is the A-word version 2.
Very nice, very nice.
Amarillo Pale Ale.
Now you've just poured a beer, I was going to propose a commercial break.
Can we do one more? Because there's a maths question. There's a maths question for Andy to answer.
Go on then.
P equals IV.
Andy, strap in. No, you can't just go P equals IV. You can't just say nobody is going to know what P equals IV is. Okay.
Power equals current times voltage. There you go, folks. Use it.
Derivative of the
and if you're using 3-phase, then it's √3 times V.
Let's not get too complicated.
So P equals I times √3 times V. Yep.
All right. Thanks for the physics lesson. Can you now answer the question?
3-phase power.
So the question is, Derek Hodge wants to upgrade from a 2 kilowatt to a 3 kilowatt element, but he is not sure if his 16 amp fuse will take the draw. Take it away, Andy.
3 kilowatts divided by...
It's going to be yes.
Yeah.
So we do 3 kilowatts divided by... Now, you can either use 230 or 240. Now, in the UK, it's probably more likely to be 240. So divided by 240. So you're 12 and a half amps. So you are well within your 16 amp limit.
Could he do a 3.5 kilowatt element, Andy?
Yeah. Could you not?
On a 16 amp fuse, you can. So the other, flip that equation around, and basically, if you times your voltage by your current, then that tells you what your maximum wattage is. So
But try and not max it out like that.
yeah.
I would leave a couple of amps spare,
But
possibly.
13 amps is basically roughly 3K. If you've got 16 amps, then you're going to be roughly 3,700 and something.
50.
It's probably why we use 2.4 kilowatt elements on a 13 amp socket. So you're keeping below that sort of limit.
Yeah, you've got a little bit of headroom there, haven't you? So it's not going to be overheating.
You'll probably you'll probably find, if you look at the actual curve for the fuse, you'll probably find that the fuse can actually do, like a 13 amp will probably do more like 16 or 17, 18 amps maybe before it will actually rupture the fuse. But you've also got inrush to worry about as well. So what happens is it's not actually just 16 amps. You might find within 200 milliseconds it's actually like 50 amps or 60 amps, but the fuse will be able to take that because the curve actually changes. So you can actually have a higher current for a shorter period, but then the longer current as well. So there's different things to take into account. There you go.
I'm sure.
Nice.
I'm sure Derek's going to consider those factors. I run 3 kilowatt elements on a 16 amp fuse, just into a regular socket.
Cool.
All good.
Euro pluses. You should be running 32 amp like I am.
I'm the same as you, Chris. 32 amps, and I've got a 5.2 kilowatt element, I think.
You can run 7 kilowatts off of 32 amps.
Yeah.
To be fair, I do have. I have 2 kilowatt elements in my pot, so I've got 6 kilowatts total.
I think you're just not trying hard enough. Yeah.
So,
no, he's got 6 kilowatts. That's good.
Just saying.
You know,
I've got the biggest.
I've got a 50-litre pot, and I can get my boil to bounce out the top with my 4.5 kilowatts, so I don't give a shit.
You need the higher element for bigger batches. So 10 gallons and above, you really do want at least 4.6 or something.
4.5 does 50 litres quite nicely.
Yeah, you're not going to do 50 litres with a 2.5.
No chance.
What element? It's you're going to get
not
it
without ruining every batch of beer that you put in there.
Yeah, and without taking a 7-hour brew day, try to get up to temp.
You could make tea, but that's about it.
You need to keep the lid on just to hold a boil.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is some mileage in talking about insulation of pots and things like that. Just not right now.
Okay.
Because clearly Owen's short of beer and wants to do a commercial. And I've got some very, very, very funky, awesome glasses that I want to use. So I've got the true craft beer tasting glasses out tonight because the wife told me if I left them in the house, she was going to bin them.
Oh, is it because they're all different shapes, aren't they?
Oh,
they're all different shapes,
hello.
and they don't stack up in the glass cupboard.
That's proper butt plug shaped glass you got there.
Oh no, this one's better. This one's ribbed for her pleasure.
Oh, marvellous.
That's ribbed for Chris's pleasure, more like.
I'm not being funny. That would fit up my ass.
Too small.
Yorkshire. No, I'm from Yorkshire. It's
well,
don't even let water in my ass.
Quick one out the chat before he gets bored with all the physics discussion and goes to
sorry,
bed.
David.
So David Foxton has asked about the latest version for Sonoma based on what we found out via the track
he told us today.
podcast. So I'll just give you a very quick overview of my current version of the recipe, which obviously hasn't been tried or tested out. For 23 liters, 78% brew house efficiency, I have got 3.6 kilos extra pale malt, so that's 84% pale malt, 350 grams of wheat, so that's about 8%, 330 grams of Caragold. I'm thinking possibly the wheat should be a little bit higher, but I haven't bothered to change that yet. And then the hopping schedule, which was the bit that I think we got the most extra information on there. The original Whirlpool editions were pretty close, I think, from what he was saying. So I had 40 grams Centennial, 40 grams Citra, Whirlpool for 20 minutes at 80 degrees, and also 20 grams of Mosaic. No other hot side hops, and nothing in the boil at all, which was something that I changed from previous. And in the dry hop, rather than being a combination of those hops, it's actually just all Mosaic. So I've got 140 grams. He was quite specific eventually about the grams per liter, or once we just sort of said numbers until he nodded. He was anyway. So 140 grams of Mosaic, obviously London ale free, and you want a high chloride to sulfate ratio. So I think it's about, what have I got? About 3 or 4 to 1. I think I've got it on there.
Did it not change? Did it not change that depending if it's cask or?
Yes, yeah, he did. He said it was completely flipped around, whether it's cask or the can or keg version. So that's quite interesting.
So what was?
And a different yeast. He also said they use a different yeast for it. So I don't know what the yeast.
Are you doing the draft version, Tricky?
Mine would be based on the can version, so the high chloride version. Oh, and the mash temp as well.
Yeah, to get more body. That's right. It was for more body because the cask
72 degrees
comes with body
temperature. Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty. That's pushing back the foreskin. That one, isn't it?
It was great. That was a good
episode.
So
there you go. At some point, I will put up a probably a video on that again once I get around to brewing it. But
what a surprise!
That's the recipe so far. Let me just I'll just drop a link to my brew father file for that in the chat because I'm feeling generous. There we go.
So just to back up the science of what I've been talking about,
man of the people.
Harmon Brewing has posted a nice comment which says, "Come on, guys, alpha and beta amylase," even though he spelt that wrong, is crucial conversion. Loads of good videos on YouTube, or you could just ask me. So yeah,
Chris,
there we go.
Chris, talk to us about alpha and beta amylase.
I just have done. Did you fall asleep?
Did you?
Yeah, just right there.
Yeah, it's all about 62 degrees and 72 degrees. The different enzymes.
I might not have been listening, to be fair.
Yeah, to be fair, most people don't.
I did pop to the loose, so maybe I missed it. But
yeah, maybe. Can we do some commercial beers? Because I've got a butt plug glass that I need to put an IPA into.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I've got mine.
Okay, I'm gonna leave mine in the can while you guys are doing what you're doing.
I've got mine. Can I go?
Go.
Yeah. So I've went Scotland.
Scotland.
Stuart Brewing, which is Edinburgh, I think. Yeah, it is. So at the top of the can, handy. 5% Island Getaway, passion fruit, and apricot pale ale, and it's probably a Lidl beer or something, no doubt. Nose is it's quite pungent. It's almost like that kind of. It's like the fake sort of extract sort of thing that's going on. It's not a hop, I wouldn't say, but it is like pungent apricot on the nose. You know, that sort of extract sort of way. But it's pleasant. It's quite pleasant. So, and then flavour is the body there a little bit. It's not super. It's got a bit of substance to it, and that sort of passion fruit definitely comes over the tongue sort of after. So I would say it is definitely tannable in the sense that you could probably drink a little bit of this and it'd be quite nice. So, and colour wise, it's kind of palish with a bit of slight orange hue. And on camera, blooming heck, it looks really dark, but you probably see better there. It's quite just a nice slight off, slightly darker than your super pales. Head seems to be keeping about tiny wee bit. Nice carbonation. Yeah. Good beer. Decent enough, but is it anything that would compete with any of the big boys? Probably not. I think it is a good supermarket type beer. But yeah, that's probably where it kind of ends. So yeah, there you go.
Cool. I've gone with a bit of a supermarket special myself. So I saw this one in Sainsbury's earlier, and with the knowledge that I only had dippers in the fridge at home, and I just couldn't
Track
really
dippers.
face any more track dippers after the destruction that they wrought on the last podcast.
Yeah, I'm the same.
This one caught my eye just because it said East Coast Pale Ale on the front, and Boadicea hops, Amarillo and Cascade, so a British hop with a couple of American stalwarts, Bear Island, who I'd never heard of, and then unfortunately after buying it, I turned it around and realised that's actually just a sub brand for Shepherd Neem, so not necessarily would have been one of my first choices if I'd known that. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's what it is. So 4.8%. Still don't know what an East Coast Pale Ale is, but the beer itself, crystal clear in the glass, so it's definitely more in your kind of traditional English kind of golden ale sort of appearance wise.
it's not East Coast, is it?
Yeah, not East Coast in the what our understanding would be from a lot of more modern breweries, but it smells like, you know, more kind of traditional English ale, sort of golden ale type thing. There's a bit of earthiness on there, little bit of citrus hops maybe, but it's not. There's not a huge amount. It's quite.
Maybe it's
a little bit of malt.
it's a Norwich East Coast.
Yeah, that's it.
East Coast to tricky.
East Anglia Pale Ale might have been more accurate.
Yeah.
It's pretty inoffensive. Clean,
Drinkable.
easy drinking. It's actually reasonably nice, but I mean, I couldn't really tell you much about what the hops are bringing it to, because it's just got that like generic kind of supermarket bottled ale
citrus.
kind of little hint of the Cascade in there. I mean, I don't think this is touching the sort of track dry hopping levels that we were talking about before. That's for sure. So there's not much to say about that really. It's a pretty bang average kind of golden ale really, but it's all right. It's not offending me. So cheers.
Mine just definitely got juice characteristics on it.
Yeah,
it's a bit probably more. What do you call it? Extract, I would say.
Who's next?
Owen's contemplating. Look at his face.
That furrowed brow.
I know.
He doesn't know what to make of that one, does he?
He's like, is that papaya or is it?
Or is it arse crack?
Yeah, I wish I was asking myself those questions. I'm drinking a beer, an American beer from Barrier Brewing, who are based in they're another New York brewery. Seems like everyone's doing collabs with New York breweries. They are based in sort of near Long Island, New York, and this is a Verdant collab.
Oh wow! Right, okay.
But it's released by Barrier, so they've obviously collaborated with Verdant on that. It's a IPA, obviously hazy IPA, coming at 7.4%, and it gives very little information as per most American beers. But interestingly, it is double dry hopped with hops. So that's informative.
Groundbreaking.
I mean, what else are they going to dry hop with? Trees?
Who knows? They obviously felt it was important to establish that they were dry hopping with hops.
You know, we've just had royalty join us. I'm sorry to interrupt your flow, Owen, but we've just had Big Bananas joined on.
Oh, good.
He says he's running
Stephen.
late. He's having the first beer of the night. Well, nail that. Get 2 more down your neck, and you'll be where we are, BB.
Pull your socks up, Stevie.
I can see him sat out in his newly converted brew house in the shed.
Yeah, but there's red
Probably
Chinook
recording a video for himself.
The man's a legend.
So this beer, I'm just getting a very heavy hint of kind of those oniony, garlicky vibes.
Oh no!
On the nose, and that's pretty
not
much
what you want.
That's pretty much all I'm getting.
Oh no!
Is that very distinctive
This is not
oniony
the aroma
hop
you were
thing.
looking for.
No.
I like that one, Trick. That's a good one.
It's kind of maybe like it's dominating everything, and unfortunately, as my face suggested, after having a sip, that carries through to the flavour, and it's super chunky too. It's like a real chewy beer.
Enjoy.
Just I think he's
chug
going to
it.
struggle with that one.
Yeah. Chris, you ready?
Yeah, I'm not getting great vibes out of that beer. Nah, it's a drain pour for me, that one.
Ooh.
Oh dear, that is no bueno. We don't want that.
Pretty disappointing.
Okay, can I jump in?
Yeah,
Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Siren.
Oh, it's a classic.
The $10 shake nitro fruit smoothie IPA from Siren. First time I've had this. Can art?
Nice.
Oh hell yes, love it. In fact, so that can art is so good. I'm actually going to take the label off and stick it onto my kegerator. I like that one. As soon as I poured this, I just got this weird kind of. I hate to be the one who uses this word on this particular podcast. Umbongo.
Yeah.
I just got that straight kind of,
Tropical. It's only that pungent tropical. I
had this fleeting image of a rhino taking a mandarin, a guava, and just kind of mixing it with something else, and like the whole advert passed in front of my eyes. But
would it be suitable for consuming in the Congo? That's the question.
I mean, I would reckon you could drink this one in the Congo and be quite happy. It smells amazing, and
has it got the body?
It's got that super smooth kind of coating,
that
nitro-ness that you get, and it's not like super bitter, but there's that chunk of bitterness which mellows into that fruity tropical kind of. I'll tell you something. I've never been the world's biggest fan of Siren beers. I just haven't. It's not. They've never really been within my wheelhouse, but my tastes are changing.
They are.
Times they are a-changing, as the Grateful Dead said.
Blame me.
Yeah. I think you've been educating them.
Maybe. It was ever since that passion fruit sour.
That was a beautiful beer.
Moved him along.
Yeah.
If you're going to rebrew a beer, Owen, rebrew that one.
All right.
That's a banger. I'm trying to work out what actual. Oh well, there you go. Mango, papaya, and passion fruit puree.
Yeah,
is what this has got in it, and it's got a good kick. And to be fair, it's 6.5%, so I'm going to be wasted pretty soon. It's a 1 pint beer, but it is just such a smooth.
Only 1 pint
beer. It's only what I mean. It's 1 pint for Krona, but it's 2 pints for everyone else.
I love a 2 pence.
I don't understand why Krona are getting quite so shafted.
They just prefer a singular pant.
I mean, I don't know. Let's ask Thomas, because isn't Sweden the Krona? I love this beer. I think it's brilliant, and I'm going to buy some more of it. At 6.5%, it's drinking like a 5%er, which is very, very nice, and it does have that tinge of bitterness, and then the passion fruit comes in afterwards. It's really nice, very nice.
They're having some sort of flash sale on Monday, I think. Siren, coincidentally. So look out for that.
I've poured it into a butt plug.
A glass butt plug.
A glass. I'm never going to use it as a butt plug.
I'm feeling left out after I've had that rather disappointing drain pour-esque beer.
Fucking hell, that's good beer. That
I'm gonna bust something else. I'm gonna get a beer
You went
out
and
from...
yours sounded super hype as well, Owen.
Yeah, you know what? I bought a whole bunch of these American beers that they had down at Unity. I was dropping the beers down for the competition, and they had this whole range of American beers. They were pretty expensive. I'm not going to lie. All right, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna test this whole American beer thing out.
Yeah,
and I've really enjoyed all of them apart from that one. The KCBC beers were just absolutely incredible. But what I do have in reserve is a beer from Baron, which is called Moondust. It's a Galaxy IPA at 6.8%.
You're riding the Baron cock pretty hard at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, no, I got I signed up to Bruiser. Not sure if you guys have heard of Bruiser. It's kind of effectively a monthly beer subscription. But what they do is they've collaborated directly with breweries. So what you're effectively doing is you're signing up to have a monthly subscription sent to you directly from the brewery, which is quite cool. Because I think actually the subscription systems like Beer 52 and all that sort of stuff, all they're doing is hoovering up all of the shit beer that breweries can't sell and then repackaging it into a box of, whatever.
But I think they go to breweries, and they say, right, can you do us this beer for this price?
Yeah.
And it'll be for exposure for you sort of thing. And it just doesn't work out.
Possibly.
I spoke to Overtone about it, and they were like, yeah, we did it once. Did you see us do it again? No.
Well, you've only got to look at what they sent me in the Oktoberfest box when I got a fucking treacle stout.
Nice.
No, fuck off. I'm not drinking that shit at Oktoberfest. Thank you.
But they what do? They charge you an absolute fortune for tiny little cans that isn't getting passed on to the brewers. So they're making a massive margin on the cans. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the fact that they can give away so much free beer just to be able to get you hooked to the subscription. I don't know. I don't really want to give Beer 52 any airtime because I think they're a bit shit. But Bruiser I will give airtime to because I think it's legit. They're supporting decent breweries and the breweries are sending the beer directly to you. And in this case, I chose Baron and I got, I think, 8 cans of beer from Baron. So, yeah, I've been enjoying their beer. Their can art's kind of cool, pretty simplistic. And I'm excited to try this Galaxy IPA, which what I really like about Baron, I've already talked about this on a past podcast, is the fact that they add a nerdy bits, right? And then they start to talk about, in this case, water profile, what basically all of the brewing stuff that we want to know about, which is really cool. You know, they're telling you which yeast they're using. Like they're using WHC saturated yeast.
That's cool.
How they've utilized the Galaxy in terms of in the boil and a huge charge in the whirlpool and a massive charge at the dry hop. So it's not quite the amount of detail we would want, but it certainly gives you enough to be able to go, yeah, you know.
I could give that a go.
I might be able to create a recipe similar to that.
Or something based off it, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, you guys chat whilst I go and drain pour this shitty double dry hopped with hops beer.
There's been a lot of love in the YouTube chat from a couple of people specifically about Bruiser. Hughes Bruce says he likes Bruiser being able to choose a brewery is very cool. And Harmon Brewing says Bruiser is a balance between choosing the beer that you want from a brewer and having to buy enough to get free postage. He's been happy so far, and the Baron is pleasing me. Don't we have Baron coming up on a podcast pretty soon?
I think somebody was trying to line them up, but
I think Owen had already lined them up.
That's sorted. Well, stay tuned for that one.
Yeah, I'm interested in that one. I'm always interested in new breweries, especially the people who are doing it the right way. I think that's
you know, if they're adding the nerd section on their cans, that they're probably gonna be pretty good on the podcast, right?
It's not that I'm not a nerd or anything, but you know, I think that's a good thing. I think breweries that are willing to share a little bit, like, you know, we talk about him all the time, but Harrison's Brewery, you know, Harry always puts his recipes up and online, which I think is a great thing, giving back to the community that support him. Because I'm not being funny. It's not like we're not going to buy your fucking beer anyway.
Exactly.
You know, we're not going to turn around and go, well, shit, I've got the recipe for Sonoma now. I'm not going to buy it.
Because you'll make it off the recipe and yours still won't be as good.
And then you'll still buy 24 cans to test it against your recipe. Because every time you drink that beer, you're going to want to drink a can of their beer at the same time.
Yeah.
I remember Tricky doing... Tricky did a clone and then a comparison video. By the end of that video, he's fucking trolleyed. He done about 5 videos in 5 beers in 20 minutes. He was
that was very early on. I think I did a triple clone versus original video, so it was like 6 or something.
It was
beers.
amazing.
But as you do when you're filming a video, you end up nailing them pretty fast because you're like, oh, I'm just gonna drink as I go along, and I was absolutely ruined by the end of that one. But the hazards of YouTubing, you know.
That's that.
Suffering for the art.
Did you realise?
Someone's got to do it, Tricky. Someone's got to do it.
Graham Hughes reckons we have some sort of bot. He says the Hop Edition bots should keep us informed so we can get their beers in.
Boys, he's just corrected himself.
Yeah, I'm ignoring that bit.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm going to say, Harmon Brewing says if we don't stop talking about commercial beer, he's going to bed. Of course you are.
Do another question then, I suppose.
Yeah. Right,
move along.
Can we carry on with Derek's questions? Because some of them are really quite nice.
Yeah.
So
I'll let you guys talk about this one.
Yeah, because you love it so much. Derek wants to venture into Quake and has crossed my loop Voss. What style would suit it? Clearly, it's a lager.
No, pale.
Pseudo lager.
No, not Voss.
Some might say a real lager.
I haven't used Voss for a lager because it's
I'm
going to be
not
too
biting
orangey.
tonight, chaps. You can carry on.
Oh, is that what's happening?
Well, I'll be honest. I think personally, Voss suits a lot of styles. Anything where you want a lot of fruit character.
Yeah.
An American wheat beer would be good with Voss. I think personally, pale ales work well with Voss.
Yeah.
I think super fruity IPAs, a la this kind of fruit smoothie beer works well with Voss. Basically, anything that you want a lot of tangerine flavor in to accent those hops is good with Voss.
Neon Raptor actually use Voss as their house yeast, and the clone kit I did of theirs from Brew Day was a Voss beer, and that came out pretty well. So yeah, there's potential for using it in sort of big hazy fruit bombs as well.
I know another one. The best one, is a Norwegian farmhouse ale as well. It's might be quite good for that.
Yeah, with spruce.
No, we're not gonna do that, Andy.
Yeah, 9% Norwegian farmhouse ale with spruce.
That's that.
I think certain dark beers you can go away with using Voss as well.
Oh,
I imagine Voss would work quite well with Hokum.
Yeah, I think it would. In fact, I may have even used Voss to make Hokum in the past.
bloody hell.
There's a guy at our local Homebrew club who does all of his Impy stouts with Voss. And obviously, like sort of flavor-wise, it seems to work quite well, but also just turns them around so much quicker than not just for the fermentation phase, though. It seems like they actually condition out a lot quicker somehow as well. I don't know what's going on there, but his sort of Impies are drinking like beers that you would expect to have been aged for like 6 months plus already within, like a few weeks of them being finished fermenting. So it does seem to be really good for the high ABV beers. Maybe it doesn't, kick out as many of the sort of flavors or stuff that you would want to condition out with more traditional yeast, because it's just good at high gravity and doesn't get stressed with the temperatures and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's like most things from Scandinavia. They don't get stressed.
That's it.
I was what it was bred for. It was like the most chewable beer, or what should I say, ever.
It doesn't even have to be
It's just-
chewable for Voss.
It's just doing all the big weights. It's like no bother.
It's
then you
swole,
throw it out
swole.
pale ale.
It's gonna ferment your fermenter. David Foxton recommends you doing an alt beer with Voss. I do
Okay.
hope he's taking the piss because I wouldn't. Yeah,
I did ask. I probably said this in the pod before, but where Voss isn't good is where you want a bit of body and you're in the final sort of gravity. So, because it can dry it out quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think that's where it's more attuned to higher ABV beers, so high gravity worts rather than lower gravity worts. Otherwise, yeah, you are going to end up with quite dry beer.
Yep.
You know,
I mean-
in a sense, I think the actual alcohol, the volume of alcohol during fermentation will slow that fermentation down eventually.
Fucking hell.
Probably slow the. I
Okay,
suppose that just won't happen.
just a second. Can I just bollock one of the members of our current, chew Brett? I am not answering that question yet because we have another 3 questions from Deck to get through before we get to you. So calm down, chill your boots, go and get into your hamster wheel and run it off. All right. Just give
It's
us some
on.
time.
It's on the list. It's on the
Right.
list. He's posted it
Calm
about
the
3 times now.
fuck down.
Back
Now,
into his Yoda hobbit hole.
David was fishing apparently. That's all right then, David. It's fine.
He's easily baited, to be fair.
Oh, have you noticed I'm repping tonight?
That's
Very
a big
nice.
one.
Hey,
Bit
that's
different.
what all the ladies say. Not
That's
about
what
my
she
coffee
said.
either. So second question
Your
from
ass.
always about my ass. My ass has got its own gravitational. I dropped my e-cig the other day and I caught it as it came round. Gravity.
I thought you meant you found it in your ass crack.
Yeah.
No, dear God, there's tribes living in that, mate. I'll never find it in my ass crack. So Dex asked, he's setting up his hand pull. What advice for pressure on his corny? I used about 2.5 psi. If you go much higher than that, you get a bit of fobbing through it. It was about 2.5 psi I used.
Yeah. I have
But you
mine at
just
about
be-
4 or 5, and it's probably a little bit too high, but I think you've just got
high.
to be careful about making sure it seals. So it's definitely, if you're going for quite low pressure, just check with some spray or something that your corny lid is actually sealing properly. Otherwise, it's just going to obviously lose gas. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
another thing is it will be slightly harder to pull, so you just need to take your time with the pull as well when you're
Mhm.
pulling, because the 2.5 back pressure's quite low, so you just need to take your time on the pull. That's all.
Just be gentle when you
Yeah.
tug your handle,
It's
Yeah,
not your dick. It's not your
pull
dick.
it,
Don't
pull it
pull
off
it that hard.
gently. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you'll get too much foaming. If you
I mean
tug
the
it
other
too
option
quickly.
none of us has looked at is bagging it,
So
but it's the convenience of the keg versus the bag.
Oh
Yeah,
my
before you
God,
pull it
I've had
off.
too much beer. Hang on a sec.
That's-
1 bag, 2 bags, or a hyena? Which one is it? If we're bagging it, is it so it's 1 bag so that you don't have to see her, 2 bags in case one rips, and the hyena is where you wake up, she's laid on your arm, you'd rather chew it off than wake her up. Which one is it? No? Okay.
Chris.
So PSI, Thomas, is pounds per square inch. It's a measure of pressure. I don't know what you use in Sweden.
PSI is 2.5.
Yeah, but PSI is pounds per square inch. It's a measure of pressure.
Next question.
Oh, he's like, what's
You
that
might use
in
bars.
bar?
yeah,
You might use bar or, millimeters of mercury. So another question from Deck. He has some special B grain to get used and was thinking of a bitter style. What do you guys recommend?
Special B, it's raisin, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah,
I
it's quite
would-
dark.
Raisin.
Stout. Do a stout.
Goodness stout. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it could go in something like a hokum style recipe. Other one for me would be like an ESB.
Is it
doing
not? It's
special.
not
Oh,
for
mate,
Belgium?
ESB.
I thought Special B is for it was a Belgian malt.
Yeah,
It
it's
is,
a
yeah.
Belgian malt.
Yeah,
It's
so
Belgian dark crystal, basically.
Yeah.
But
I think it's just a case of if you're going, obviously, paler. The paler styles are going to be using less of it. The darker styles you can afford to use more of it. And it is a malt that you do have to use in reservation. I think
Sparingly.
You're probably talking maybe 2 to 5% of the grain of the grist, maybe not even 5.
I wouldn't go any more than 5. 5 is pretty much the hard limit.
Oh, what did I use?
Yeah,
you're risking some really weird flavors if you go above 5.
I think you're going to end up with a bit of a raisin bomb potentially.
That's what. If you want a raisin bomb, then use loads.
If you're making
like Andy did.
If you make a rum and raisin stout, so you're going to put a bit of rum in it when you put it into the keg, you could probably afford to hit maybe 8% to give it that real good raisin balance. But I think if you're just using it on its own with no alcohol to back it up, 5 is pretty much a hard limit.
I think Special B might even be one of those malts that's kind of into that like harsh range of like EBC of colour range.
You can use it in a bulk.
So I think if you do use too much of it, it can be quite harsh.
Definitely.
Maybe even get a bit ashy.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got that covered then.
That's my thoughts on Special B.
Can I do this question since it references me directly?
Yeah.
Okay, so Deck says you guys all have YouTube channels, and then except for Chris, his face is only suitable for radio.
Correct. Good assessment, Deck. Well done.
I'm a fucking supermodel, dickhead. Why are you saying that? He says, what camera and mic setup do you all use? So I've got a Sony 5100 camera, and I run a Scarlett 2i2 condenser mic setup on mine. That's what I'm running.
There you go. So I go.
That's me.
Tricky's using his mobile and he's got 6,000 subscribers.
Yeah, but it's an iPhone.
There you go. So. It's all about the pilot in the box. I watched Top Gun Maverick last night. So
just think how much better Tricky's YouTube could be if he actually had some decent kit.
I know.
If we got
some proper B-roll out of Tricky, it'd be like
you could be up at 100,000 subscribers.
I reckon he might be.
Yeah,
you would be banking it, son.
I think. Do you know what? You'd end up finding it's so much more extra hassle that it would put you off actually doing the regular uploads that you do.
It's a pain in the arse as it is to do all the editing and stuff. I don't really need to add in more complication on that front.
Exactly.
To be honest. I mean, I wouldn't mind a better setup, but it's just not priority really for me at the minute.
Yeah. Cool.
You don't need
Go on,
it, really.
Andy. I'm sure you're ready to reel off the multitude of.
Yeah.
Come on, Andy. Tell us what shit you're using.
I'm using a Sony Alpha A7 III. I've got 2 A7 IIIs because I do wedding photography, not for long. And this lens is a 28mm f2 lens. I do have a 35-1.4, which is awesome for weddings, but I sometimes use it in this, but it's a bit, And then microphone is a Blue Yeti I've got, so yeah.
A Blue Yeti?
A Blue, yeah. Blue's the microphone the manufacturer, and it's the Yeti.
Do you use that when you're doing your videos as well?
If I'm doing voiceover, I'll record voiceover on that, and then I can't even remember. Is it a Zoom F1? I've got a lav mic if I want to do any lav stuff. So if I'm far away from the camera or something, I can mic myself up. But these days, I actually use this setup now that we're using today because I've got the desk and all that set up, and I can just chat to camera and then just use this mic. It's good.
Nice.
Owen?
Well, I use what is it? I don't even know what it is.
I thought it was a Panasonic, no?
Yeah, it might be.
A Lumix
XA5.
Yeah.
Switched out the lens.
You've got a manual lens on it.
Yeah, manual lens on it, because just to get that nice soft focus.
Get the bokeh.
Yeah, it's good. And then I use a blue
bobbles.
snowball for the podcast, and that's probably about it. A few tripods. I haven't produced YouTube content for probably about a year now.
Shocking.
So, yeah, life's got a bit busy.
Do you know what it is, Owen? You do this.
Yeah, the podcast is
the
my main
podcast
contribution.
is yeah. The podcast, you'll be surprised at how much time it probably actually takes up. And when you're trying to balance that with family life as well, this probably takes up a lot, because there's a lot of planning as well that goes in the background. So yeah. The Hop Edition, it's probably one of the reasons why I don't produce as much video either now. I don't know, Tricky, have you found the same?
I've found that there's a lot of videos that are sort of, I do lots of video and then they're on the cutting floor for ages, because there's just, find it really hard to find the time to do the editing. Like video, and it's easy because you can do that anyway as you're going along. But yeah, getting the actual final product out is tough. When we're putting quite a few hours into this, like you say. Might look like it's a complete shambles, but there is a lot of planning and stuff in the background.
I mean, on a Saturday night, you could have been editing your latest YouTube video.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I probably would have been doing some of that if I was doing this. So
and not to mention
that time.
Not to mention, it's family life, and then it's also homebrewing, right? Being our main actual passion. And then about you guys, I've got other interests as well. And so it's just really a case of fitting it in.
Totally.
You've only got so much time.
You spent 5 hours doing a brew that day. It's kind of tough to then go and spend another 2-3 hours doing a video edit afterwards, isn't it?
That's it.
Yeah, you're already in the doghouse after you've done the brew day. So.
Yeah, and the missus is like, I want to watch the latest Netflix documentary or whatever, and you don't get your date night. So yeah, no, totally.
Next question. So this comes from Gary Hughes. He's looking for some advice on the best triple dry hop combos for a pale ale. He wants to do a split batch soon with different yeast, different hop schedule, dry hop schedules. He's thinking about doing a classic Citra Mosaic Simcoe at 10 grams per litre. But he's open to some suggestions for the other batch. So what might be our suggestions, guys, in terms of dry hop combos and dry hop schedule?
Idaho 7, Kashmir, and Azaka.
Okay.
Idaho 7, Citra is good. And then, something.
I try to steer
Something
away
something.
from Citra because every plebling is using Citra in everything.
It's such a good base. It's like, I don't know. There's just something about it.
Do you prefer a Citra base or a Mosaic base?
I prefer a buttery biscuit base.
Do you?
Thank you. I'm here all week.
That's
Base,
interesting.
buttery biscuit base. Oof, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. I think it probably depends on. It's hard to talk about just a dry hop combo without understanding what other hops might have gone into it. But I really enjoyed when I did a beer, which was Galaxy Citra Simcoe.
Yeah, I'll find mine.
I think that's a pretty damn good option.
Yeah, I was going to say Mosaic Simcoe Galaxy or something like that. Not far off what he's done anyway, but yeah, definitely. Mosaic Eldorado is a good one.
Mosaic and Eldorado work well together.
Mosaic and Equinaut, I think, can be good too.
Citra and Equinaut work well.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. There's so many good hops out there at the minute. I personally think that something like Galaxy, Motueka, and Hallertau Mittelfru might work well.
Citra Galaxy Sabro.
That's a little bit kind of out there, isn't it?
You wouldn't dry hop with the Mittelfru, obviously. You'd put that in at about 5 minutes, but the other two would definitely go in for the Whirlpool.
Were we talking about this, Chris? Was it Thursday night? We
Yeah,
were
yeah.
talking. Yeah, we had a wee chat with Graham. And you were talking about putting something traditional, maybe near the end of the boil or something.
Just to lift everything else.
Yeah, I've seen, because I'm sure so in Scotland we've got Williams Brothers and Joker. I think's got something like Fuggles or something like that in the boil, but it's like Citra and all that sort of thing. It's in it, but it just gives it that sort of nice little. It just brings this nice dynamic range to
It amps everything up.
It makes you appreciate the citrus hops even more, because you're just getting a slight sort of earthy, twangy sort of thing going on in the back, and then it's just like boom, juice.
What was that name? What was the name of that beer that we had when we were down at Unity?
Oh, the lager
that had Bramling Cross and something else in. The one that Johnny Pollock drank about
Dobby.
8 gallons of.
The Dubby.
Nobby.
Dubby.
Dubby. That was fucking brilliant. It was one hell of a beer.
Brookhouse Bramling.
It was great. It
Very
was
nice.
a great beer. And I think that more people should try doing that. Sticking something more English or noble that's not quite as in your face to give a lift to those hops that are coming in for the Whirlpool and the dry hop. I think it makes a difference.
I think Columbus is one of those hops that you can mix into a dry hop.
Yeah.
Quite a good effect, you know, and try and pick something that's going to give you strata as another option. Can give you a little bit of a dank, herbaceous base that helps make, like say Chris makes those kind of higher end fruity hops pop a little bit.
Talus as well. Talus I've found when used in the Whirlpool but not in the dry hop does give a lift to everything in the dry hop as well. It's strange. What have we got hop wise? I mean, rough guess, probably 80 varieties of hop.
Oh.
If you take everything into account, from like the English hops, the noble hops, the first generation from noble, the second generation from noble, you've probably got 80 hops. So 80 squared is what? Fucking 64,000. So you've got a fair few combinations to get through.
Yeah, that's a brewing for a lifetime, isn't it?
Well, unless your name's Brett, in which case it's 3 weeks. Brett brews a lot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay.
I thought maybe that was some sort of like, you know, dwarfish short joke. But
no, if I was going to go short, I would have sort of suffixed it with the word stumpy. But yeah, he is short, by the way.
Not as short as Tricky though.
No, he's not. Tricky is the ultimate stumpy. Yeah, short.
I wasn't the shortest one there.
Aren't you ever so slightly taller than Jay Nelson?
I don't know, but I'm definitely taller than JP.
To be fair, I think Oscar is taller than JP, and he's 7. So, yeah. But I'm not going to argue with JP because he knows how to use a gun.
That's true. Leave him out of it.
Yeah.
Pretty handy with an air rifle, as I remember.
I'm not too bad.
Right. Next question.
Robbie Gibson.
Is this Aussie Rob?
I don't know.
I don't know. Sure. Maybe not. Who knows? But this question is: if we were to start a local homebrew club, where would we begin? How do you encourage the community? So I'm guessing this is coming from, like, you know, his actual current challenge is what he's trying to do is start a homebrew club and encourage his community. So what advice do we have for Robbie?
Well, I've done it basically. So I did set up Bedford Homebrewers 2 or 3 years ago now, I think. My advice would be priority 1 is find a decent venue for it, and I would recommend looking for a tap room or a bar or a brewery tap or something like that, where they can have you in. And you might think that there'll be most places would be horrified by the idea of you coming and drinking your own beer for free. But actually, if it's like a quiet midweek night, then a lot of places will be quite happy with the idea of getting some people through the door who are likely to buy some beers when they come in and probably take some beers on the way out. That's certainly the way it works with ours. So ours runs at the local tap room called Beerfly, and yeah, the owner there was really happy for us to come in, and we do it on a Tuesday night. Yeah, basically people buy lots of beer, sort of like I said at the start usually of the meeting, and then get a carry out at the end. And I think it basically gives him a nice bump in trade for what would normally be a dead sort of Tuesday evening. And then obviously in terms of getting people to the club, I just pretty much purely did it through Facebook and just went on the various groups and stuff and advertised it and said, is everyone local? And I wasn't actually expecting there to be as many people just from Bedford who would be around to do it, but it turned out there was a lot of homebrewers there, and it was also drawing in people from places nearby. So we get people over from Milton Keynes and the sort of surrounding area who will come along too. So yeah, social media is obviously the easy option in terms of advertising it, but if you're talking to, again, like being in a tap room, having them able to like advertise it for you as well will be a big help. So that's also a way to most of the people locally who are going to be brewing are probably going to be going to these sorts of places anyway at some point. So if they hear about it via the people who work there as well, that's an easy way to drum up a bit of interest. As far as encouraging people, I guess in terms of actually encouraging them to brew and stuff like that, some clubs will be really serious. Our clubs is more of just an absolute opportunity to get pissed on a midweek night. Other clubs will be quite serious about doing things like educational stuff, even training for like BJCP, judging, that kind of thing. So there's various different ways you can approach that. If people want to be quite serious about it, you can go down that route. If they want to just have more of an informal, fun kind of meet up and taste the beers, that's good too. We try and maintain interest by having sort of like a themed night every other month. So we meet up monthly, and every second month we basically do a theme. Like this month we're doing what are we doing this month? We're doing beer meets food. So you've got to take some food along as a pairing to go with the beer that you bring along. We'll also do stuff like brew in particular style or to a certain recipe framework and things like that. So giving people a little bit of a motivation to actually brew some beer as well is quite good. That seems to work quite well for us. So yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that I would say on that. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's not many people around, then I think that's probably the scenario where you're going to struggle a bit to get enough people along to get it off the ground. But certainly I was surprised in a sort of I guess Bedford's a pretty big town, but I wasn't expecting as many people to turn up as did to ours, and we regularly get sort of 12 to 15 people turning up for our meetings, which is pretty good.
Is it also true that you write on the inside of blokes' toilets on the door? Interested in beer? Cool, tricky. Put your phone number.
Yeah, that's what the Dudes Brew stickers are for as well. So I can just
it's subscribe.
two birds with one stone. Subscribe to this and then come to our homebrew meeting.
Perfect.
I think that was what the inscription on the inside of your toilet was about after Tricky had been in there. Yeah.
No, that inscription was
I blamed it on my kids as well.
You shall not pass, or something along those lines.
I thought it was the crabs in eardrums 6 feet high, don't go next door because the bastards fly. Yeah. Anyway, I have genuinely put quite a bit of thought into starting a homebrew club in Wakefield, but yeah, seems like a lot of hassle for. Yeah. No, probably not, to be fair, but I've thought about it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think about a lot of things.
It's giving back. I think for the large part, homebrew clubs are really, really good for everyone in being able to get feedback on their beer and to get constructive feedback. So I personally, being a member of a homebrew club, wholeheartedly support the importance of them within the community for those that are brewing, right? They're really important, particularly to newer brewers. You know, we had a guy not too long ago come along and he was having like a chlorophenol problem. And I was like, well, what are you using to clean? He was like, oh, yeah, I'm using that VWP stuff. And I was like, well, just stop using that because that's what's causing your problem. Stop using it. No more chlorophenol. So, you know, it's little things like that newer brewers, he might have just given up in the end if he didn't have that resource.
Yeah.
The best thing about having a group of people who all do the same thing together is that for want of a better term, that Borg kind of, that shared intellect, you know, that just the ability that if you've had a problem or you're having a problem, you can guarantee that somebody else at your group either has the problem, has had the problem, fixed the problem, or has read a forum or a Facebook group where the problem has been explained. And it's that shared knowledge, that ability to disseminate understanding and knowledge.
Hive mind.
Yeah.
So no, I think it's really important. And Chris, I think you should do it. And yes, it will be a hassle, but I think about all those people that you might help to make better beer.
Yeah, but the problem is I'm a prize fucking Olympic standard wanktard most of the time, mate, and I'd just tell everybody to just fuck off.
That is true, actually. I didn't think about that point of view.
Yeah.
That's good that you're self-reflective and
everybody thinks I'm a cunt.
That is going to probably create a challenge for
could have an impact.
Homebrew Club, to be honest. Yeah.
I can be nice when I want to.
Yeah.
I just don't want to most of the time.
Right. Do you see Graham's comment there? Absolutely. If you have a problem and you can find them, perhaps you can hire the A-team. I'm
going to highlight that because it needs to be highlighted.
So what's the next question? So we got a question from Yeast, who is a Patreon follower, I believe. One of the big supporters of the podcast. So thanks, Yeast, for the question. I think he's asking what is better, making a yeast starter following a calculator or directly pitching dry yeast.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time I would just say pitch the dry yeast because unless you, I mean, it's not recommended to make a starter with dry yeast anyway, I believe. No? But
well, Yeast, if you're in the chat and I've misunderstood your question, help us reframe it. But yeah, I think largely for me it depends on whether you can get the yeast that you're after in dried format, and that's probably for me the prevailing decision point. Is if I can use dried yeast, I will use dried yeast. If I am making a beer style that I can't get the dried yeast for and I have to use wet yeast, then I'll make a starter and use wet yeast. It's generally how I view it.
Yeah, unless you're brewing something like super high gravity, there shouldn't be any reason to need to build up a dry yeast pitch, and you can just pitch more packets if you do need to do that. So
at £3 a pack, you can just pitch
what I would say.
Packs.
But then, or you could buy one packet of yeast and then just build it up. But say you're doing 10-gallon batches, right? You just need one. Just need one and then just build it up, in a flask, if you're happy with that. Instead of using like 6 packets of yeast or something mad for a lager, say.
Yeah, I think there's an economic balance point, isn't there?
Yeah, I would just make a 5-litre starter and then...
I don't know whether the advice to not make starters with dried yeast is just dry yeast companies trying to make sure you buy more packets, or whether there's a legit reason for that,
It tends to take off, though.
But what's the difference between somebody using a single pack of dried yeast and making a 4% 23-litre batch, taking that beer off and then simply pitching a 10-litre batch onto that yeast cake?
It's nothing. It's exact same
It's
crust.
exactly the
Yeah.
same thing as making a starter. So
That's a
I
fair
don't,
point.
Yeah, I
I
call
don't see the
bullshit.
difference.
Yeah, and I think it's bollocks them saying, like, people that go, don't ever make a starter with dry yeast. It's like, well, you just use dry yeast or wet yeast. Like, you can make a starter with it. It's yeast.
Mm.
Go with
Yeah.
it.
Fucking yeast. As soon as it's rehydrated, dry yeast is wet yeast.
Yeah,
And as long
exactly.
as you've got nutrients within your starter as well, and you oxygenate your water, then maybe that's what they're worrying about. But yeah.
Well, you know, I've heard the bullshit from people that you don't need to oxygenate your wort when you're using
Dry.
dry yeast because it's there. Just fucking buy a pack of that. And then
Yeah,
don't
nutrient.
worry. Just
Yeah.
don't fucking worry.
I
You
use.
know.
I've got. I think it's the Y yeast, the tube.
It's just fucking dead yeast anyway. You know, stick some zinc in there and you'll be fine.
Job's like I do.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyway, that's that covered. So we got a couple of water chemistry questions next.
Oof.
Is there a
Fuck.
way to reduce HCO3, which is bicarbonate, other than diluting? And if not, what does a value of 60 do to the brew? Well,
Fuck
yes,
all.
because you add acid to neutralize bicarbonate. So I wouldn't say you have to dilute, although obviously, you know, if you're adding RO water, for example, you will reduce it through dilution, but you don't have to do it that way. Obviously, you can just use the acid to neutralize the bicarbonate.
Is 60
What
not
does-
quite low?
60 is very
That's
low.
pretty low.
Pretty low. So that's going to have a, you know, not
S-
completely negligible, but a fairly minimal effect on your pH, which is what the
Yeah.
bicarbonate is really the thing that you need to be considering when you're looking at the HCO3 level. That will affect where your pH level is going to fall because of its buffering effect.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So yeah, I didn't use the A word either, Chris, did I?
I'd just like to say that I have this particular pack at the side of me. Look at the size of it.
What is that?
Sodium bicarbonate.
Sodium bicarbonate.
I mean, it's not bad in a beer if the beer calls for it. And I know that everybody bangs on about bicarbonate levels and hardness and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, it's a problem if you're trying to brew a lager with a bicarb level of 450 or whatever. But 60's fuck all.
Yeah, I think
Well, it
mine's
depends what you're brewing,
30.
doesn't it? You know, if it's a
Well,
porter or a
that's
stout,
really
then
soft.
you might need to add more bicarbonate.
Yeah, you're going to
like
need
with
to
that.
add bicarb.
Which follows on to the next follow-up question on that, which is
Goodness.
what adjustments would be needed when brewing with a level of, say, 250? Well, if you're doing a lager or a pale ale, you're going to need to add acid to bring that down. Otherwise, your
Yeah,
pH is going to be way high, and you will get probably some astringent flavors coming through because of that. But you might find if you're doing a really hefty sort of stout or porter, the
You need
acid
to
from the
add
malt is naturally going to, you know, balance that out. Or I mean, you probably wouldn't need more if you're already at 250, but yeah, it just depends on your recipe, grist constitution, and how any acid from that is going to balance that out and affect your final pH in the mash. So
Well, currently we have a comment from David Foxton who says to use AMS or CMS. You know, you could use either really.
yeah,
Or you could do the maths
lactic.
and work out
or
how much
phosphoric
acid you
acid as
need
well.
to add in order to neutralize it. And apparently this is from a man with a 327 level of bicarb. Which
Pretty-
Nice.
I mean,
Pretty
I've
hard
literally done every single one of those options you just listed.
Because
And
on
all
your
of-
water,
all of
when
them
you
work.
drink it, it's like cloudy, sort of like
it comes out kind of cloudy out. The
it's
out
almost
of the tap.
smoky.
Yeah.
Your water's definitely got some body to it.
Oh, it has. Oh, yes, it has. Yeah. I reckon I'm at least 50% calcium.
calcium's good.
And yeah,
Good for the bones.
AMS is an option, but the issue with using AMS is the fact that it does add sulfates
Sulfate.
and chlorides.
Yeah.
As a result of using it. So my preference is to use phosphoric.
Yeah, same here. That's the same route I kind of ended up going down. I started with AMS and CMS and then eventually found my way to phosphoric acid for the same reason.
I take it
Just
you don't
goes-
use lactic because of the flavour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's good enough Coca-Cola, it's good enough for me. So that's all I'm saying. Right, Luke has said that he's drinking an Impy Stout and it's hitting him hard. So unless Owen starts serenading him with some Marvin Gaye, he's going to sleep disappointed.
No.
Night, Lukey.
I guess that takes us to the last question then.
It does. It takes us to the final question. Unless anybody in the chat has got another question, in which case, feel free to post it now whilst we're doing this question. This may take a little while for us to get through this question. So you've got a few minutes. Any last questions that you've got, please stick them in the chat now and we will.
Dex got a question. There was one about was it a decent alternative to Bohemian floor malted Pilsner?
Dingermans.
Yeah, I put that in the chat.
Yeah, Dingerman's Pilsner is pretty solid. Are
And
you
it's cheap as well.
deliberately avoiding answering the question that Brett really wants us to answer, which is, if you turned pro tomorrow, what would be the first brew on the go?
It's fucking dead easy for me. It's persistently bitter.
IPL, Citra, Amarillo.
I think from a kind of business perspective, I'd do a sort of session APA or something. The beer
Vacant
that's
gesture.
just clone Vacant Gesture. Make that. But you want something that's going to be like your lead beer first. That's going to, people are going to drink in quantity.
I'm not being funny. It's not hard to clone that. The recipe's on the website.
For me, it's probably my house pale. So
I'd buy that.
Hazy pale ale.
I'd buy that.
That'd be where I'd be going.
Persistently bitter all day for me. It's a well-refined, nailed-on recipe that I'm happy to brew in it. In fact, Oscar was banging on today when Becky was talking about me giving me some brew time tomorrow. What am I going to brew? And I said persistently bitter, and he went, "Good, Daddy, because I like drinking that." I'm like, "You're 7. What the hell are you doing drinking that?" And he went, "Well, when it was last on tap." I'm like, "Oh, fuck's sake. I'm going to have to start locking my shed when I'm not in it."
Yeah, at 7, that is a little bit worrying, Chris.
Secretly, Chris is like, yes, that's my
I would agree.
That's my boy.
Why all your kegs are dry, mate?
Yeah, that's why I've got no beer.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, it's. I think if you're brewing a commercial beer, there's many things that have to be taken into account. Number 1 is drinkability. Number 2 is sellability. And number 3 is, does it stand out in the market? And I can't name another bitter that has the same USP in that it's that much amber malt in it as persistently bitter. So I think I'd be all right with that one.
500?
520.
That 20 grams does make the difference.
This is V9.
I'll be honest with you. I wanted to get to 3.9%, so I stuck the extra 20 grams in.
I thought you were gonna go full kilo.
Well, 1.2 kilos is the highest I've gone, and it did take 14 weeks to condition. Thomas has brewed a persistently bitter today. That's how good it is.
It is excellent. I've brewed it 3 times now. 3 times.
Wow.
It's a pleasant beer. I like it. It's far too easy drinking, though. That's the issue.
Luke has asked if you could recreate a commercial beer. What would it be? I mean, don't think you need to ask me that question.
Why
It was discussed on the last pod.
Oh, what would I reproduce? I don't know, maybe like Pliny the Elder or something. If I could just reproduce that, then happy days.
Andy?
Dramatic pause.
I don't know.
What about Plur by Overtone?
No. I think mine would be a lager. Honestly. I would go for... Oh, I don't know. Sorry.
Walk fast.
No.
Not fast.
You would make an
Tenants.
absolute fortune.
Tenants.
Lager.
Tenants, exactly.
Tenants
There you go,
extra.
sorted.
See, when the question came up, I thought, how funny would it be if I said tenants? But
And I know what you're saying, though, Andy. A lager, especially a good lager,
really, yeah.
you know, something which has got a bit of body, a good bite of bitterness, but still got that crispy cleanness to it, that's going to sell well.
Yeah. What, but a Pilsner Urquell, if you could just, you know, that or like a Beat Moretti.
We have a suggestion from the chat for you, Andy, which would be an Iron Brew Pale.
Hey, is that not, would you call it the sour? Vault City? I'm sure they do an Iron Brew.
It's a
Didn't
difficult,
those,
it's a
didn't
difficult
those Welsh
question.
twats make an Iron Brew beer not too long ago?
Tiny.
Tiny Rebel.
Yeah.
They
What's
need to fucking get out
Teeny. I like to call them Teeny Rebel.
why are they twats? First question. What have they done?
They just make shit beer, don't they?
Yeah.
Just generally like making like hype, trying to constantly make hype beer. Like we're gonna do a bacon and pig shit pale ale because it will sell and make headlines.
Was it not? Like marshmallow. Was it? They do the marshmallow one, don't they?
And I think that they can actually make really great beer, but for some reason their marketing team rules the roost, and they just make wacky beer that everyone seems to certain subsection. No, it tastes like shit. Have you even drunk that beer recently?
No.
It's just a bag of fruit juice bullshit. It's awful.
They were at
It's like drinking alcoholic umbongo, basically. It's but literally drinking umbongo that's been left on a warm shelf for 6 years.
Prison hooch.
No, that's because it has been left on a shelf.
It's just.
Who are we talking about? Sorry, I missed that.
Tiny Rebel.
Talking about. I'm just
yeah.
slating Tiny Rebel for a while because they bother me.
Absolute cack.
Yeah, they're sort of over there with like Brewdog and
synthetic shit.
Those guys that make Gamma Ray. They're sort of over there in that camp of people that aren't really craft beer. Beavertown. Yeah, they just sort of macro claim to be craft, make slightly shit beer.
No, the problem is a lot of these breweries upscaled to massive brew kits, and they've lost what they used to have because of the scale that they're brewing at now.
Yeah, well, it's their own fucking fault, isn't it?
But
can we?
Because they don't know what they're doing. They're
trying to bring craft beer for the masses.
Yeah, they're just greedy. They're trying to.
Well, they're making loads of money, which is probably their
Are they though?
Become their main goal. Well, Tiny Rebel are in like all the main supermarkets, and they're probably, for your average man on the street, they're probably one of the best known craft brands. Craft !
Oh no, the biggest, obviously, like
even
it's going to be
Brewdog and people like that.
Yeah. Brewdog are like attacking Europe just now, pretty big, from understanding.
Sorry to interrupt, Andy. Have any of you guys drunk their like strawberry donut beer?
Yeah.
Like that is just pure chemicals. It tastes a bit like they might have slipped a little bit bleach in there.
It'll probably have in the ingredients list natural flavouring.
They're just trying to cure COVID. That's why they put the bleach in there.
Anyway, let's not waste any more time on Tiny Rebel.
I want to give some shout outs to some of the choices from people in the chat before I get onto a question from Mr. Hodster. So Lukey Stevens has given a massive shout out to the Augustina Helles, and I would back that one up because that's a good choice. Banging beer. I mean, If you want a lager which is drinkable but doesn't taste shit like Carling, you want Augustina Hellas. It's a fucking banger.
Some of a wee bit of malt backbone.
Yeah, some of that actually tastes. Brett has put up Burning Skies Provision, which I haven't had for a fucking long time. Any Burning Sky beers.
I think he found a clone recipe for that in a book, didn't he, the other day? So maybe he's going to actually give that a go.
If he did, then I need that one.
I think it's in this book here, which is the craft. It's the Ewan Ferguson craft.
Yeah, that was it.
It's in there. Yeah, there's quite a few decent like mixed firm sour beer recipes in here. They do a whole kind of saison-esque section. So,
and Brett's just replied to you with this. Yes, mate, it's happening.
done.
Do it.
So,
Do it!
A Hellas.
Get to the chopper.
A Hellas typically has some Munich in it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Here it is. I'm reading it right now. The recipe.
Literally
much
what
for
I
a little
brewed.
bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I brewed today. That's
Pilsner,
not bad.
Pilsner wheat spelt and Kerrygold. East Kent Golding SARS. Solaria?
Solero.
Solero.
No, not Solero. It's spelled
Solica or
Celia.
something.
Celia.
Celia.
That's a Slovenian hop.
Yeah, and Sriracha yeast.
Oh, dull.
And the yeast is a saison strain for primary fermentation. And then like a late pitch of Brett and lacto.
Yeah.
Fuck saison.
And he's
honestly,
not on
like
board.
him, man.
I am not drinking any more saison.
It says, I quote, it says, for Brett, choose a gentle variety.
Brett's pretty gentle. I mean, he's small enough that he can't be hardcore.
He's got very soft hands.
I've heard that rumor and I've shook it. So yes, I agree.
Love them.
Another quick question before we get to the Hodsters one is Thomas, the Swedish chef, has asked, how about using killed, i.e. by boiling or something like that, bread yeast as yeast nutrient?
Fuck that.
I wouldn't do it because
You can just buy yeast nutrient.
yes, and also
Good point.
within that yeast nutrient, I know full well that it's not just dead yeast. There are other essential elements, the zinc and the magnesium and the calcium, all of those essential metals that you need in order to give the yeast the health. They're all in there in abundance, which is why when you put the yeast nutrient in there, you know, you get that real big kickoff when it comes to your yeast activity.
Just use olive oil.
Don't do that. So yeah, that's a big one. But I want to get on to Hodster's question. I'm going to put it up in the chat, guys, so you can have a quick read. What do you think is the hardest style of beer to brew and get it right?
Oh, hazy pale.
Is Mr. Hodster, is this the guy who won our competition?
It might be, yeah. Where did the question come from?
It's on the YouTube chat.
It might be Hoddy, who did, in fact, I think it is.
Max Fair.
In our competition, yeah. Who it might be ...
Is it?
Yeah, he knows who he is. Big shout out to Hoddy. And just to slip a little, it's not even a little spoiler, we're going to have Hoddy on the podcast soon.
Yay!
He's putting beer. So that's going to be super exciting. So that's coming up in a few weeks' time. Anyway, what's his question? What was his question?
The hardest style of beer to brew.
Oh, I'm going to shout out. I'm going to shout out probably something like a Flanders Red, or like a blended beer style.
Yeah, Max Fair.
That you not only have to master the style in itself, but the actual eventual beer is a blend of multiple years.
I'm sorry, I have to put the ultimate pun on.
So,
Hoddy on the poddy.
Very good.
Amazing.
Thanks, Brett. Yeah, Holly's going to be on the
Holly
body.
is indeed on the body.
I like
So
that.
yeah, I'm going to first say something like a Flanders Red or a like what's the other one, like a Lambic. Is easily the hardest beer to replicate in a homebrew style. It has to be barrel aged. It has to be mixed fermentation. It's a blend of multiple years. Easily the most tricky style to brew.
I think the actual brewing part is not the difficult bit. It's the control and the additional fermentations that's harder. I don't think the brewing part is the hardest bit.
It's the sheer effort of having to have like 3 or 4 barrels that you're then eventually going to blend into something that's incredibly complex.
But say you do a Flanders Red, you just need to make sure it doesn't infect the stout that you do after as well.
Yeah,
But then it could end up award-winning beer.
It could win the UK Nationals. So
It
who
could,
knows?
yeah.
I think the
Breaded
toughest style to brew would be a smoked rye Simcoe IPA that Chris would actually drink and enjoy. That would be the ultimate challenge for me.
Correct.
I mean, basically, what you're doing right there is you're listing something that's never going to happen.
I need to open your mind, Chris. It could be the best beer you've ever drunk.
I think
it probably
the
won't,
hardest style to brew would be a straight up, no bullshit Pilsner.
No, it's so I don't fucking have issues with Pilsners. It's easy. Pilsners are easy.
And this is the difference. Oh no! Andy,
He went full octave.
Oh no! You see, the thing that you're not taking into account is, mate, you can fucking brew. Owen can fucking brew. Tricky can kind of brew. I can brew. So we don't have it. I'm taking a piss, Tricky. I know you can brew. Olicana Golden Ale, mate. Fuck yes. The thing for me is, we can brew beer and we fucking talk about it on a podcast, what to avoid, what not to do.
I think it's the water. The water's got to be the biggest thing, and that's what fucks up so many people in the UK. Is they've got hard water, they try and brew lagers, and they go, oh, this is a nightmare. But
I think I agree in some respects to Chris in so much as trying to replicate some of the really classic styles in terms of their decoction mashing and to really like, and actually I might even argue the humble German wheat beer, the Hefeweizen.
That's your
in your personal experience.
In your personal
experience is literally the hardest
Chris,
style to brew. But actually, I've drunk quite a lot of homebrew style Hefeweizens, and I would say there's a fairly large gap between a decent homebrewed Hefeweizen and a commercial Hefeweizen.
I will absolutely agree with you on that, and I think it comes down to the vast majority
of 300 years of experience.
Well, there is that, but there's also the fact that the real good ones, the Weinstefaners, the Paulanas, the Augustinas of the world, who are producing these beers, are still producing them using decoction techniques, are still producing them using the Reinheitsgebot as a guide, and still, I've got to get that word in every podcast.
I was like, bingo!
They're still using the traditional techniques that fucking work. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it comes down to for me. There are shortcuts we can use as homebrewers. We don't have to do a decoction mash. We can simply mash at 66 and add a different type of malt, which is going to give the same kind of thing. But the point is, you're never going to reproduce Weinstefaner exactly the same as what Weinstefaner produce it. Because you're not brewing it on the scale, in the way, in the place, with the water, using this, using that. I just think that you've got to, the place that you do things contributes. the process that you use contributes, and I think that's a big thing to take into account.
But then, if I want to drink the fine stiff Anna, then I'll just go and buy it.
Exactly.
Whereas
No,
I
I
can
think
just
you
do
should
my
probably
own.
say that
easier.
for any clone beer, really. I
That's
mean, I
true.
know some are easier to do, but yeah, I mean,
But who's sitting there homebrewing and just brewing clones?
A lot of people, weirdly enough.
But are
Have
we?
a look at Homebrew UK. They're all producing Badger IPAs.
Wary kits.
Yeah, with Badger. You know,
Some people are mad for it. You know, just give me worry by the
Yeah.
pintful.
And
I suppose the Dog and Partridge. It's all about their
there's
YouTube.
two types of
It's all
homebrewers.
about
There's the creatives, and then there's the pissheads that just want to recreate.
I want a 9.6% session IPA.
For
Oh, they
80
just
pence a pint.
They just want really cheap beer that they don't have to pay pub prices for.
Yeah. I'm going to highlight a comment purely because I feel like I need to inflate my own ego. Luke Stevens says that my sessionable Hefe that I sent out to everybody was brilliant.
It was.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It was really very good. Anyway, we've been prattling on for nearly 3 hours.
We haven't done a 3-hour podcast
that's
in a
quite
while.
a long one.
We haven't. It's 2 3/4 hours now.
Are there any more questions?
Have we finished the questions?
Any more questions before we go?
I think we're finished with
literally
the
12
questions,
seconds.
even if any more come in.
I think we've gone beyond the questions.
Yeah,
We're just talking. We're creating our own questions. We've gone to full meta.
Right. I think what we should do then is we should kill Audacity right now. And we should open up the after party for a good half hour or so. And does everybody agree with that?
I'm down with that, Chris. Sounds
Yeah.
like a great idea.
Okay, in that case, this is Hop Edition, episode 51, the Q&A episode. Many thanks to our sponsors, Brewcake Tap, and also to every single one of our Patreons who I'm going to turn back on so that I can just scroll for a little while. If you're a Patreon, or if you're not a Patreon, you want to become a Patreon, it is www.patreon.com/The Hop Edition podcast. Thanks to everybody who contributes to that. We have some big plans involving a trip to Manchester coming up quite soon. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's contributed a question, especially the slightly more technical ones, because I really enjoyed doing a little bit of research on those. And it's always good to get a bit of banter going between the four of us as to how to answer some of these questions, because quite often opinions are quite different, which makes for fun on our end. Yeah.
No!
Oh no! It's like he went up like 4 octaves.
I did
Dogs.
that.
There was dogs in Glasgow going, what the fuck is that?
You can tell how much he disagrees by the number of octaves that he increases by.
Absolutely. When he reaches hypersonic, that's the issue. So yeah, thanks for listening, and we hope that you have enjoyed this episode. We have some big things coming up soon, specifically Hoddy on the Poddy, and a few other things that are coming up very, very soon. This is going to be fun. Cool. So thanks for listening. We're going to end it there. The Hop Edition is out. Say bye-bye, people.
Cheers, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Love yous. Bye.
Right then, I'm going to save that. File, save projects. New folder.
Anyway, have we killed the live chat, the live feed?
Not yet.
You need to post the.
I need to post the linkies.
What I need a wee.
I'm going to wait for a few people to join, actually. So, if you want to join the live after party, that is the link for the Video Ninja, and the password is... Don't read too much into this password. I've been a little down recently.
Oh, before the pod, yeah. Yeah.
No, just over the last sort of week or so, mate. It's been a bit rough for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Make sure you copy and paste the password, people, rather than trying to type it in. My passwords are well known for being a pain in the ass. Right then.
Right.
That's Audacity done. Right, I'm going to kill the feed. So thanks very much for watching. Everybody who joins us on the live broadcast, we appreciate you very, very much. We've loved all of the questions that you guys have put to us. And apparently Chris Bingo is going to be happening for Christmas. So, yeah, there we go. Right, I'm going to kill the feed. Love you all. See you soon. If you're a Patreon and you're having issues with the password, please feel free to jump onto Discord and I'll post it up there. Bye, YouTube.